You're listening to Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Don't run and hide. Don't be afraid. Don't turn away any longer. The truth will set you free. And now, your host, the captain of conspiracy, the prince of paranormal. This ain't your daddy's radio network show. This is Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
All right. Bring it down. How you doing? It's Fade to Black, the Friday edition. Today's Friday, April 18th. 105 days into the new year. How you doing? Let's get it going. Welcome, everybody listening around the United States, all around the world. What did I say yesterday? Hither and thither, to and fro, far and near, left and right, back and forth. Welcome. Live from the JP Motorsports Studios, right here in Burbank, California. For KJCR and the Dark Matter Radio Network, I am your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. And you know how I start off every show. Started off with a salute to the proud men and women in uniform all around the world, fighting the good fight for us. Without them, there is no me, there is no you, there is no us. And you couldn't hear me right now. Think about it. Today, actor James Woods, 67 years old. And the Canadian's man's man, who's actually an American, Rick Moranis, is 61 years old. His movies include My Blue Heaven, Club Paradise, Parenthood, Spaceballs, that was great, Ghostbusters, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Little Shop of Horrors, and my favorite, Strange Brew. I was on Belgab earlier today, and I see this little post on Belgab. It said, Fade to Black, it's okay. But what really annoys me, I'm paraphrasing, are the celebrity birthdays. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, go ahead, post that. I'll do 10 minutes of them tonight. Show's about me. And the thing is, when there's not 20 celebrity birthdays here that I don't care about, or celebrities, or people, or scientists, or whatever. This is an insight to my twisted mind. That's what it is. So if you've got James Woods and Rick Moranis in the same sentence, you got a problem. And that's me. So deal with it. And I was thinking about this. That's 30 seconds of the show. It's a 3-hour show. So what you're saying is 99.9999% of the show is cool. 30 seconds you can't put up with? Well, you know what? It'll grow on you. I promise. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Everything is Fade to Black. J Church Radio, at J Church Radio. I like what's been going on with Twitter the last couple of weeks. I like seeing everybody interact like that. Going at it. At J Church Radio. Now, when you tweet to get on Dark Matter in that little Twitter box, it's hashtag DMRadioNet. Hashtag DMRadioNet. I want to see you guys light it up tonight. Come on, let's do it. Follow, like, subscribe, go do all that stuff. Tonight we're going to have open lines. Tonight, it's Derrel Sims, the alien hunter. Great guy. I'm really looking forward to this. Been looking forward to it for a long time. I say that every night, but it's because all the guests are really cool like this. Tonight, Derrel, and I hope he's wearing his coat and wearing his hat during the interview tonight because I want to get the full effect. And Derrel wants open lines. So, he's got a lot of fans out there. He's been doing this for a long, long time. So later on in the show, we'll open up the lines and we'll get some interaction going with Derrel. Okay, 323-825-5045 is the call-in number. Or you can Skype at Fade2Black14. It's right there at JimmyChurchRadio.com. You know what to do. Fade2Black14, no spaces, the number 14. You can email throughout the show. Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com. I got an email after the show last night. And, I got a bunch of email after the show last night. And they were asking, which is the fastest way to get to you during the show with an email? Do we do it on the website? Do we do it direct? Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com. What's the secret? What's the secret? And they're both the same speed, to be honest with you, because I don't get them first. They go to the producers first. But if it's a question for the guest or if it's relevant to the conversation that's going on in the show, then it comes in here to me. But anything else that is like post-show relevant, Jimmy, what's your favorite orange juice or whatever that is, that stuff waits till after the show. But everything gets to me the same speed. But if you do Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com, for some reason, I think the producers take that more serious. I don't know. Just a hint. That's a wink. I don't know. They just get into here. Okay. Let's see. The galleries. I wanted to, I got a couple of emails about this too as well. The galleries for that we post each night for our guests remain on the website. So if you miss a live show or if you have to catch a replay, everything is still up. Or if you have to go back and listen or you want to go back and listen to a past show on YouTube, you can do it knowing that the gallery that we talk about during the show is still up on the website. And that's a personal thing for me that I really didn't want to lose that because I think it's dynamic. And it has a lot to do with, what makes the show cool for you guys. So I don't care about memory space or the size of the website or this thing growing to be too huge. I don't care. We've got to keep that stuff up there. So it will always be there. It's already out of control. We've got so much stuff up, but it's going to continue. So like I said, if you miss a show and you're listening to the replay on Dark Matter, don't worry about it. You can go back and all the galleries are still there, okay? And, a lot of you don't, and a lot of you aren't listening to the show right now. It's going to be future in time. It's going to be later. It's not going to be in the now. It's going to be then, later. So when you're doing that, you're still listening to me now, right? Yeah, that makes sense. So if you're listening to this as a replay right now, instead of live right now, you can still go to the website. And all the galleries are there. That's my John Teeter impression. All right, so they will be there for you to follow during the show. Got an email, another email, today. This came in today, and I thought I'd read it to you. It's from Dennis in Oklahoma City. He says, "Hey, Jimmy, great show last night. In my opinion, last night's show will go down in history as the definitive Rendlesham incident interview. I learned all kinds of things last night. I hope you are going to post the interview on your archive page or YouTube soon. I want to listen to it again. Again, thank you. Great show." Thanks, Dennis, but there is no buts to that. I apologize for that. It was a pretty good show last night. And the feedback has been really, really cool. And to have, I want to say a couple of things really quick, and I'm going to comment after Derrel Sims tonight, too, as well, because there's some other stuff I want to read. But it was planned this way, to have Rendlesham Part 1 last week with Peter Robbins and Larry Warren, left at Eastgate, and then last night's show with the new book and Nick Pope and the other John Burroughs and the other group. having them close together allows us to analyze both shows. Recent memory, and it's all there. And that's what the email has been about. There's some posts on the forums, on all the forums, Bell Gab and our forum over here too as well. And that was really cool because it was the same thing for me as it was for you. And that was that's why it was done that way and it was planned that way. It could have gotten out of control. He said, they said, she said, this is the way, and I said last night during the show, that's not what the show is about. We're not about to do that here. And it was very easy to lose control, but we didn't, and neither party did. And I thought that was really, really, really cool. And I'm going to talk about that tonight after Derrel is done. I've got a couple of other comments that we'll get to. All right. So with that, let's get this show cracking. It's the Friday edition. Tonight, Derrel Sims, the alien hunter and star of the new Discovery series, Uncovering Aliens. He will be with us, and we will be taking your calls. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, at JChurch Radio. Let's light it up tonight. Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. And I will talk to you in about 2.5 minutes. Don't touch that mouse. I'll be right back.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I gotta tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444, or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. It is the Friday edition. Tonight, Derrel Sims, the alien hunter. Follow us at JChurch Radio on Twitter. Email Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. Let's get it cracking. Let's go. Well, I said yesterday, I think I said it Wednesday, pings are gone, plane is gone, debris is gone, boats and planes are still searching, and that's your update. Little more information has come in today. I got a couple of emails earlier about MH370 that it seems to be dropping off the radar out there too. You're right. It's not being reported on like it was. It's not as sensational now. It's sad, and I think that's what I actually replied in those emails. But new information came to light today about the path taken from the flight when it disappeared from radar. That the plane deviated from its route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing when it turned left, but it was still inside Vietnamese airspace at that point, and hasn't been disclosed yet. Why today, I have no idea. And the plane climbed to 39,000 feet, just short of its ceiling for safety, which is 41,000 feet. Maintained that altitude for 20 minutes, and then started to descend again. I just don't get why this information is trickling out and why it wasn't shared, with the families, press conferences. Investigators have now determined that the jet was equipped with 4 emergency locator transmitters, or ELTs, which are designed to transmit a plane's location to an emergency satellite when triggered by a crash or contact with water. And the first thing you just want to say is, what, huh? The ELTs are at the plane's front door, rear door, in the fuselage, and in the cockpit. And nobody knows why they weren't activated, and nobody knows why nobody's talked about it. Malaysia Airlines has declined to answer questions about the ELTs. The airline said it would not comment on any questions, and I quote here, any questions that relate to information held by other authorities and or fall under the jurisdiction of the ongoing investigation, end quote. Sad. They got what they wanted. Silence. Who is they? I don't know. But if they really wanted to find it, they would have. Magnitude 7.2 earthquake today hit Mexico, southwest Mexico, down on the border. But it turned out on the Pacific side, it was pretty deep in the ground. 7.2 though. We've had a lot of stuff on this coast, from Chile to L.A. and everything in between. It's you can draw a line. It's pretty scary. And an avalanche today killed 12 on Mount Everest. It was the deadliest accident ever on Mount Everest. And this story came out of Kathmandu today. A high-altitude avalanche killed 12 Sherpa guides and seriously wounded 3. All of the climbers that hired the Sherpas, all of those climbers were alive. There were 50 people on the mountain at the time. The avalanche was at 20,000 feet. One of the most treacherous parts leading up to the summit. They just left base camp. They were moving, and boom, got hit. Before today's accident, before today's avalanche, the deadliest single-day toll was in May 1996 when 8 climbers disappeared when a huge storm had hit the mountain, and we all remember that. Over in Ukraine, the pro-Russian separatists are trying to remain defiant. The building that they occupy, which has been going on for a while now, they don't want to give it up. And outside of the building, you have all of the the Russian community that lives there, bringing them food, trying to stick this one out. But the Ukraine Prime Minister said today, "Come out, your time has passed." Well, the thing is this. And I've said this before on the show, I just don't see this getting out of control. I don't. It's going to chill out. That's just the way that I feel. Today, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, the influential Nobel Prize-winning author of 100 Years of Solitude and Love in the Time of Cholera, died. His family and officials said he was 87 years old. The literary giant was treated in April for infections and dehydration at a Mexican hospital. He passed away today, and there you go. But 87 years old, and that's as far as I'm going to go with that. But he was one of the greats. Passed away today. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead. You know what? I want to roll. I just want to go ahead and move forward. I had a couple of other things I wanted to get to, but I would like to just move forward with Derrel Sims. So let's do that. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network, the Friday edition. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be back right after this at J Church Radio. Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. I'll be right back after this. Don't touch that mouse.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Dark Matter.
Dark Matter, Dark Matter, Dark Matter, Dark Matter.
You're listening to Fade to Black
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carzan, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
All right, everybody, welcome back. KJCR on the Dark Matter Radio Network at J Church Radio. That's the Twitter. Let's go. Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com is the email. Derrel Sims, the alien hunter, is the world's leading expert on alien abductions. His 38-plus years of field research has focused on physical evidence and led to his groundbreaking discoveries of alien implants and alien fluorescence. As a former military police officer and CIA operative, Sims has a unique insight into the alien organization which he believes functions similarly to an intelligence agency. Sims is also a compassionate and skilled therapist who has helped hundreds of alien experiencers all over the world come to terms with what they've witnessed. Tonight, we'll talk about his amazing life, and we're going to go behind the scenes of his new Discovery show, Uncovering Aliens. I would like to welcome to the program right now, Mr. Derrel Sims. Derrel, are you with us, sir?
I am, sir, and delighted to be here to meet your guest.
Thank you very, very much. And I had said during the intro of the show tonight, I hope you're wearing your hat and your coat during the interview so I can cop a vibe over here in Los Angeles.
Well, you'll see me out in Los Angeles and on the 20th of May, and I'll be as I normally dress around here, the same way as I do on Uncovering Aliens.
I'm really looking forward to it. I know you're doing a MUFON presentation out here, and although that's not what this show is about, but hey, it's on the 20th, and it's right here in Burbank. They usually do them here in Burbank, and it's just right down the street from the studio. So that'll be great, and I'll be there, and we'll hang out, man. I can't wait.
That will be a pleasure for me.
All right. Now, Derrel, really quick. I start off every show the same way, every guest, and which is tonight, just get comfortable. It's just you and I talking as friends. We're sitting in my living room, and there are no questions. There's no agenda. Let's just have fun, and we'll see where this conversation goes and ends, and at the end, hopefully, we'll still be friends. Okay?
That's fine with me.
All right. Now, with you, and there was, I'm gonna start things off a little bit different tonight, if you don't mind. With you, and I was talking to you about this earlier, but your credentials and your CV is about as as heavy and complete as anything. I'm certainly, I'm a little jealous, but it is great. Now I'm going to do this. I'm going to read a little bit from your CV. Okay. Now,
Sure.
Don't freak out. I don't mean to make you blush, but this is serious stuff, and I think it's something not only to be proud of, but to do this in one life is quite extraordinary. And again, I don't want to make you blush, but I'm just going to go through some of these bullet points. But discovered the alien implant phenomenon and pioneered research protocols. Discovered the phenomenon of alien fluorescence. Has in his possession the largest collection of physical evidence of alien human contact, including skin samples, DNA samples, X-rays, MRIs, and sonograms. Pioneered revolutionary hypnotherapy techniques for reaching beneath screen memories as much as 3 layers deep. First abduction researcher to initiate reaction from an alien species via post-hypnotic suggestions installed behind the abductee's subconscious. As head of the Houston UFO Network, and it's the UFO Group support group, oversaw the double mass abduction of 1992. Work reviewed by the Royal Society of Chemical Engineers in the UK. Developed and practiced a multimodality approach using specialized techniques in memory retrieval and intervention therapies for use with individual of traumatic events. First UFO researcher to be invited to lecture on alien abduction by the American Medical Association at a conference at John Muir Medical Center. Developed an extensive questionnaire this is something that stuck out for me, circa 1988, for alleged alien experiencers employing a variety of analytical techniques, including symbolic profiling, handwriting analysis, NLP, and more. Invited to join PARSEC, a European organization of doctors, physicists, psychotherapists, and mental health professionals exploring the paranormal's effect on the human mind. Man. And again, I don't mean to make you blush, but that's an extraordinary life. And I'm not even going to start off with this. I want to start off with the CIA.
Well, it's not because I'm particularly smart. I'm just old as dirt. I just keep doing stuff.
It just keeps accumulating. The ball just is getting bigger. So with you, I do when somebody has CIA, obviously that it's cool, it's respected, it's dark, it's mysterious. It's a man's world. It's a woman's world. But, you know what I'm saying. You got that whole 007 thing going on. So what can you tell us a little bit of what you did with the CIA? You don't have to go into it, but I'm just not going to move forward unless we talk about it. So
then I guess we'll have to
thank you. Thank you.
Certainly. There are things I can tell you. And the reason I told this to the UFO community years ago, when I openly started doing research back formally in the 1980s, is because and my friends told me, please don't do that. And I said, but wait a minute. I said, and if people find out, I said, if you found out I was in the CIA 10 years after we knew each other, would you be a little disappointed? And he said, of course. And I said, why in the world would I not tell everyone else? He said, well, it's going to limit your speaking engagements. People accuse you of once in the CIA, always in the CIA, and all that. And I said, it's okay. I said, I'll live with it. And anyway, that's the bottom line. The fact is how I didn't. I was not a CIA spy, and I didn't join the CIA in any sense of word like that. I was simply sheep-dipped out of the military. I volunteered, I quit college, and joined the war, the CIA, the Vietnam War, and effort, and I was at NMSU at the time, and joined the military for 3 years, and anyway, I was supposed to go to Vietnam, and it was in military police school. And long story short, we about 70 of us got introduced to some real interesting guys, and 3 of them in suits, and they weren't CID, Criminal Investigation Division, which were the detectives of military police, which wear suits. Mm-hmm. And I kept asking the lead guy, who was a colonel, I said, "Why are you out of uniform, sir?" And he would just smile and said, "I'll answer that later." Okay, that's fine, sir. But I kept wondering, who are these guys?
Right.
And after a while, they told me, said, "You'll never see Vietnam." If the head guy interviewed me, he said, "You're just exactly what I want." And I got to thinking, what is wrong with this man's life?
Right. And what did
I didn't know it was CIA at the time. I had no idea.
Did he know
I honestly did not know who they were.
Did he know anything about you personally?
Oh, he knew everything about me. He knew everything about all 70 of us. In fact, he asked one question: "How many of you intend to get married in the next year?" About half raised their hand. He said, "Please leave."
And so your hand
they
was
had
down.
to eliminate a bunch of them. They wanted about 20.
Right.
And that was it. And so I said, okay, I'm going to sit in the back of the room and just watch the show. And the bottom line was, once we agreed to do whatever it was, to go wherever it was we're supposed to go and whatever, which we had no clue what was going to happen. They kept telling me, "You'll never go to Vietnam." And I said, "But I signed up to go to Vietnam. What are you talking about?" And they looked at me like, "Are you nuts or what?" I said, "No." I said, he really wanted to know the answer to that. And I said, "Well," I said, "Look, I'm Native American, Indian, Irish." I said, both those basically as groups of people, I said, pretty much in their history busted heads and took names. And I said, that's the way it went. And I said, I'm also a martial artist, and I teach all kinds of interesting things to the Black Berets and Air Commandos at MSU. So would you rather your kid go there and come back with psychological problems, not be able to deal with it for the rest of his life, or would you rather me go over there and do whatever it is I'm supposed to do? And he said, "What's that?" And I said, "Well, sir, I'm not going over there to die for my country. I'm going over there to make someone else die for their country. My job is to increase the casualty count if that's what I have to do." I said, "I hate that, and I don't want to do it, and I wish this thing was over. But I would prefer me go and have some better chance than some poor hapless kid who got drafted and doesn't have a clue and can't figure out which end of an M16 he's supposed to hold. There's an M14. Actually, they just changed just as I got in." So that's the way it went. And anyway, all our orders came in at the MP school, and guess what? Every one of them went to Vietnam, with the exception of 20.
And
I got TDY'd to Fort Myer, Virginia, with a military police unit, and they just looked at us kind of weird. The captain did. He said, "Every few months, you guys come in here." He just looked at me kind of weird. He says, "Who are you guys?" And I said, "Sir, I don't even know who we are." In a minute.
Right.
So anyway, long story short is about after my top secret clearance was done, and after a few other little things were done, interviews and all that and everything, all the stuff that was supposed to happen, one day a black sedan drives up, and our captain told us, says, "You guys are out of here." And I said, "Out of where?" And he says, "I have not the slightest clue." And black sedan pulled up and said, "You're out, you're going." And we got in a Learjet and noticed some interesting guys sitting right next to us in the Learjet. A few of us went at a time, only a few. And these guys were dressed in really nice suits. I mean, I thought, man, that's a Hong Kong suit. How in the world is it? What's that guy? And they just looked at us like we were diseased.
Right.
And I thought, well, what in the world? And I still had no clue, none of us did, what the deal was. And we had just been basically sheep-dipped into the Central Intelligence Agency. And after our clearances came in, the head guy, when we were taken to the main office, says, he gave us a little speech and says, "Welcome to the Central Intelligence Agency." And and this is so funny. He said, and now you're family. And I'm sitting there scratching my head.
Did you fly to? Did you fly to Virginia? Did you fly to Washington D.C.? Is that where they took you? And we can move on.
Most of the background work and everything, the finalizing of it was in Washington D.C. And that's that's pretty much the way it went down. And when we were flown to Virginia, and which we were at a top secret installation, where that's where I began my my work with the company.
Okay, all right. Before we move on, while you were there, so was this for your duration of your enlistment in the armed services? So it was just for 3 years, or how long was this deployment?
The deployment was supposed to be for 3 years, and it was kind of a guaranteed deal. I had a difference of opinion with some of the people in the company over First Amendment rights, and had nothing to do with secrecy or anything like that, because I had an impeccable record with these people, and when I say impeccable, I mean I had letters of commendation signed by the station chiefs and others. Some people, if anybody was in the company up there, you would know exactly who these people are. I have the original records, so they're not forged or anything like that. In fact, it's a federal crime to alter or change a federal document of any kind. I mean, it's a federal crime. So I still have the original documents, and I've got letters of recommendation that went all the way up to Langley, and where Karen Massinis and Helms were the director and deputy director of the Central Intelligence Agency, and got a great commendation from everybody. So I was real nice and real good, but we just had a difference of opinion when it came to First Amendment, and I stood my ground, and they warned me. Well, one individual warned me to basically keep my mouth shut, and I'm not a proselytizer, and I am a Christian. I never ever proselytize. I never ever. If you ask me a question, I'll answer it, and if you don't ask me a question, then we'll just talk about hot dogs or donuts or something. I don't care.
Right.
But somebody there didn't like that at all, and in fact ordered me never ever to mention the name of Jesus, the Bible, or anything at any time, on or off post.
Wow.
Well, that's kind of against the law, isn't it?
Wow.
And they said, it doesn't make any difference. And I said, it does to me, sir.
So that would be the atmosphere that is there then? If that was said to you, then that is the protocol. You're not going to hear Jesus in the hallways in Langley?
Well, now this wasn't at Langley, but it
doesn't
make any difference.
I'm
the point
saying,
is, this thing, it got so out of hand that they finally ordered me under duress would be the least comment I could make, under a penalty of failure to obey a lawful order, which is you can get up to 3 years imprisonment for that.
Absolutely.
And anyway, I mean, this is a full bird colonel on the chief of staff.
And you I mean, that's it. You know, you
well,
have
I couldn't
to
obey it. I can't obey that order.
You have
so
to.
They activated me back into the military and sent me to. They couldn't send me to Vietnam. That had been too obvious. So they sent me to ASCOM, Korea.
Okay.
And so I went back and became a military police sergeant. I mean, very quickly, and met some great guys over there. We did some great work over there. Really did some great stuff.
So were you in the DMZ proper?
I was in ASCOM at the it's south of Seoul, about 40 miles, right outside Bupyeongdong.
Okay. Now, while you were in the service, let's back up before you were in the service. Did you ever have an encounter, or did you see anything peculiar, or did your family? Was UFO a subject when you were growing up? And let's start there.
Okay. Well, no. My event started at 4 years old in Midland, Texas, on 1005 South K Street. That's the earliest I remember. I remember it very, very clearly, and I did not tell my parents until my brother had a UFO event, Mike, and shortly. That was after I came out of the military. He started telling Daddy about his UFO events, and Daddy freaked and called me in there and said, "Son, get in here and fix this boy." I said, "Fix what?" And he said, "Well, he's talking about flying saucers and aliens and weird stuff." And after this is 1971, I said, "Well," so I listened to my brother's story, and I looked at my dad and I said, well, I've got some good news and bad news. He said, what's that? And I said, the good news is the boy's telling the truth. And he says, how's that? And I said, that's probably the bad news for you. I said, because the exact same thing happened to me.
And your father or anybody else in your family, was it just your brother? Was there anything else?
I suspect my father was also an abductee, and that many abductees try to disprove their case and their experiences because they're absolutely mortified by the fact, if it is real, what in the world will I tell anyone? How can I even discuss this with anybody to any degree of sanity? So my event started at 4, and the entity walked in the room. Woke up's not a right term. It's almost like I was switched on. I have the propensity to wake up at the most inappropriate times. For instance, I was in surgery one time and on anesthesia, and I sat up in the middle of the operation and asked the doctor, "What that guy doing here?" And he looked at me, and anesthesiologist like to fainted. And the doctor says, "This is Dr. So-and-so. He'll be doing the procedure." I said, "Why is he here?" I said, "Wait a minute. You're not certified to do the procedure, and you hired a hired gun to come in here." And he said, "I did." I said, "Okay, I just wanted to know who it was. It was strange in the room." I laid back down, and they continued. Well, that happened when I was 4. I don't know why, but I have that ability. When something's wrong in the room, I instantly switch on. And I saw this guy, this entity, blonde, pure white, about 4.5 foot tall, maybe 5. I don't know. Just such a little guy. And he was walking to the wall, and I couldn't figure out when he's going to bump into the wall. I didn't know he was going to go through it because I didn't see him come through it. And he didn't have any clothes on. It was winter, and I'm thinking, God, that's crazy. This guy's it's freezing. And while I'm thinking all this, he hears it. He turns around, looks at me, and I see these perfectly round black eyes. Not the Hollywood version, just round black eyes. And he's standing there, and he doesn't have any clothes on. So as a 4-year-old boy, I looked at him and noticed he didn't have a TT.
Okay.
Nor a belly button.
Right.
I couldn't figure that out. After 40 years investigating, if you don't have genitalia, you don't reproduce. And if you don't have a belly button or a navel, you didn't get here the way we did. You were hatched, cloned, or manufactured, or got here some other way.
No belly button. And he was, no clothes, no jumpsuit, nothing on?
No, sir.
Wow. And so you were 4. What did you have other encounters after that? Anything else? Any other visits?
I did. I had almost 10 events that I can recall, partial events and other much more of some. They ended. They started when I was 4. They lasted 13 years, and goodness sakes, when I was 17, they ended. 1965. They ended violently in an event that I've not described much at all to anyone for various reasons. One is that the 5 entities showed up in my room on that last event that do not show up in the UFO files. I mean, they're not there. These characters are not there. And people ask me, well, what in the world they look like? And I said, well, I kind of leave that off, and the reason is because everybody always said, well, certain people will call up and say, oh, yeah, me too.
Right.
And I said, good, just describe them for me. And they always say, well, there's this big long table in the council of the robed ones. And I said, wrong, forget it. You're making up the wrong stuff, bud.
Right.
And so I keep that. But I have met 8 people that have seen those entities.
That have described.
Anybody that's met them has had a horrific experience, and many of them have had a physiological difficulty as a result. One lady ended up with grand mal epilepsy after her event, as an example.
So you have we're going to talk about the new show in a second, but I want to there's one specific thing that I saw in the show, and I've seen you reference it also in your materials, but your little flip chart. I don't know what else to call it. What do you call it? With
Yes, sir.
Okay, and what it is, and I'm going to describe it the best that I can for the listeners. It's a flip. It's a notebook, but the pages are cut in half, so it's kind of like a police sketch artist kit, where you can flip through and have different sets of eyes and foreheads and top half of the face. and then match that, and then you can flip through the bottom page and then match the two together and then come up with something. And I've never seen that before, and I will say this. That's one of the things that caught my eye with this new show, where I just kind of stopped and went, that is good stuff. And actually, Derrel, I had one of the listeners emailed me outside of the show, and he said, Jimmy, you know what you should have? You should have, this was about 3 months ago, Derrel. Check this out. Before your show was on, by the way. He goes, you should have like a mug shot page on your website, and so when you have a guest on, they can look at the mug shots and go, yeah, this guy right here, row number 2. You know what I mean? And
I do, sir.
Yeah. And it's exactly what you're doing now. So he sent it to me 3 months ago. So if I still do it, Derrel, it was still my idea. Okay.
Oh, of course.
But anyway, that's exactly what you were doing. So with what is in your little book, your flip chart, and what you just told me about the 5 entities in the room that you haven't described to anybody else, have you had somebody go through that flip chart and put together something that only you would know, so you knew that they were telling the truth?
Yes. First of all, one of the things that I used to be a cop, and I've been a private investigator now for 30 years in the state of Texas, and have prosecuted 42 felonies against people the last 3.5 years. So there's some bad people, some really bad guys.
Right.
Anyway, the point is that this is, in fact, a flip chart of perpetrators, and I've designed it in such a way that it produces all kinds of interesting creatures, some of which are not in the UFO field at all. So when you make up one
explain
and
what
get
you...
to it, like you flip the chart and everything, and you say, "Oh, this was my guy."
Explain.
And we realize that he's not even in any of the data. It's possible that you could be telling the truth, but that's the first hint that you're making your stuff up. So we'll be watching for other things, especially in your handwriting and so on. But the flip chart's the neat thing about it. It's very similar to a police flip chart where you assemble your own criminal, basically, for mug shots, not from necessarily other people, but so you basically assemble your perpetrator, that someone that's committed a crime against you. And as you do that, particularly if you're a rape victim or someone like this, somebody's been mugged and it's really traumatized them, as soon as you get close to that image, either of an alien or of a human perpetrator, it's a police case as an example,
right,
the people will have a physiological response. 55% of your communication is your physiology. 38% is the tone, pitch, and timbre of your voice, and only 7% are your words. So guess what I'm looking for? And if that doesn't show up,
right,
there's probably a good chance you're lying or you're making it up or you're a wannabe.
What do you do at that point if they fall under the wannabe category?
I smile at them and tell them, "Thank you. I've had a great time with you, and I'll get back with you."
Have they ever said, "No, I'm telling them," and you know?
No. Listen, whenever I'm questioning these people, look, I teach this stuff on the college level. I can determine whether people are lying or telling the truth just by talking to them.
You're a human.
And once I do that and I look at your handwriting and I'm listening to your story and the things are not consistent and they're not true to a number of different things and to the methods I'm using, that's going to be a very short interview.
It's so a human lie detector, like what was it? Meet the Parents.
Yeah,
where
De
Niro could hold somebody's hand and that was it. He could tell if somebody was lying or not. Well, let's go back to the original question though, which is, have you had somebody flip through? Because I know that in that flip chart, it was done for a reason. And have you had somebody, see something in the flip chart, a face, that only you know about?
No, because I've not put my particular entities in there, but I've got 2 more flip charts to do. I've got 2 more fun ones to do that are going to be even better than that one. But in our in the Uncovering Aliens program, one of my co-stars, Stephen, who is a contactee, unlike me, a contactee being someone who has feels like they're here to save the planet, fix the ozone hole, or to help us in some wonderful way that we may not know of. And whatever they do to us, it's kind of okay. Don't worry about it. It'll all it may be traumatizing, but you'll get over it. And an abductee being more someone like me, being more of an individual who feels like, number one, whenever you take me or my children or my wife, I don't care if you've got a mask on. I don't care if you're a cosmic skinhead and you're only 3 foot tall and you still do it. It's kidnapping. It's a crime. It's a mistake. And if I catch you touching my kids, and I'm in the room when you're trying to haul them out the wall, there's going to be more of us going out that wall, and you can imagine. And some of us may be coming back a little messed up.
Right. Well, I did see that in one of the episodes. One of the contactees was flipping, through the flip chart,
yes.
And Stephen reacted, and obviously the cameras were. This was a real moment, and
yes.
and you could feel it, you could see it in the show. And anyway, the look on his face was it was like he hadn't seen. I don't know. You tell me. You know the episode I'm talking about, and the reaction of Steven. I thought he was going to get sick for a moment. I mean, it looked like it was touch and go there for a second.
This is one of those moments. I'm going to tell your audience something that I can't say about some of the shows I've seen on TV. This is not faked.
Right.
What you're witnessing there was an absolute, totally true moment. He became so upset when the abductee started drawing these pictures and flipping through the charts. And anyway, long story short, is this mantis being started showing up, and I mean it really bothered Stephen, something really bad, because he, like in my opinion, I've told him this, and I've told others the same thing, and I respect them, I do, for their viewpoints. These contactees.
Right.
I said, many of you people have had experiences you don't know anything about, and you bought into the screensaver memory, and some of these hypnotists hypnotize your screensaver instead of your actual memory, and it'll create I call a screen dream. That's in my book. And what that means is that they're hypnotizing the screen memory, and that's not real memory, and you'll just sit there and just go through either programs that have been introduced to you since you were a child, or these whoppers that you actually believe to be absolutely and totally true. Like I was in School of Higher Consciousness, and they taught me this, and they did that and everything. But after I finished working with them, many of these people are on the table screaming, just like the rest of us. I'm sorry.
I've had on a lot of hypnotherapists. You know them all. You know Yvonne Smith, who is great.
I do.
Yep, she's amazing. And can anybody be hypnotized, or do you have to, if you're not open to it? Like for me, for instance, I'm just like, it won't work on me. I already have that block up. But could I still be hypnotized?
I don't. If a person doesn't have a reason to, and let me address this in two ways. One,
Sure.
Hypnosis in general. If you don't have a reason to be hypnotized, I don't think it's necessary for anybody to be hypnotized. And two, people always ask me, have you ever had anybody hypnotize you to get all your information? I said, no. I said, you don't work on my brain. I work on yours.
Right.
And they said, what do you mean? I said, you don't know what events happen to me. You're not an abductee. You're not a contactee. You're not skilled at what I do. And some of the things we do are, off the charts wonderful. You're not trained in that. And you're going to hypnotize me, and you think you're just going to get all the goodies. Well, I got news for you. You are going to be enormously disturbed whenever you start hearing some stuff. And anyway, you're going to make some huge mistakes, because there's things that have occurred in my life, particularly, that are going to be off the charts, and you're not going to be prepared for it. And you're going to want to pull me out of the vent to save me from my emotions.
Right.
Well, I got news for you. there is nothing going to happen to me that didn't already happen, so I've already been through it, so it's not like it's going to be worse than it was.
So what did you think about the way that Bud Hopkins' approach to it? And I know that you've developed your own methodology, and I've got all of the paperwork here that you sent. By the way, that was amazing reading, and thank you for that. But so what do you do different from Bud's approach?
Well,
and Matt
okay,
too. We can talk.
That's fine.
Yeah.
The difference between what I do. Well, let me tell a quick story. Right brain people tend to do that, and I'm one of them. One of the things an engineer told me one time. He says, "I don't understand why you just don't do what Bud does." And I said, "Well, Bud's a good guy. I have no problem with Bud." And he says, "Well, he has them stand behind a little curtain, and therefore they won't get scared, and they do this and they do that." And I said, "Well, that sounds fine." And I said, "There are just a few problems with that for me." And he says, "Well, what's that?" And I said, "Well, John," I said, "first of all, I want you to, we're sitting in a restaurant." I said, "Picture and imagine and visualize for just a moment. You're looking outside the restaurant, and look outside there, and I want you to imagine yourself standing out there." And he said, "Okay, I can do that." And I said, "You can, of course, as you stand out there, look back at us." And he said, "Of course I can." And I said, "So you're looking at us right now?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "John, that's called hallucination." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "We use techniques like that to destroy memory. That's called a technique used to get rid of a phobia. So basically, you're destroying the structure of fear." And I said, "I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that I'm getting real memory here. And there's a difference between memory and recall." And so I'm not picking on anybody here. I said, "But to me, I don't want to be involved in that. I want to do something a little different. And there's a difference between memory and recall and how it's altered, misread, or misused."
I just got this email in, and this is from Renee. It's what we're talking about, and it's weird. The email came in, and we're talking about this. So she says, "Derrel, thank you so much for your immense contribution to our understanding of ET contacts. In your hypnotherapy work with contactees, you must have uncovered many individuals who received messages from ETs. Would you tell us, please, about the content of any of those messages?"
I certainly will. We've had everything from, they've told us they're from the planet Bandlon, which is a clothing, or Planet Ban, which was a deodorant. What we basically found overall is that the messages that were received by almost all of them were contactees. The messages were, for the most part, if they were true, they were only done, in my opinion, to be a good cop, bad cop story. And many of them were, in fact, not true evidences of anything. They would never give you anything that you could ever check with your local physicist with or astronomer and find out it's correct, and so on. And it was always so far that you can't even imagine it, and so on and so on. When the fact is, what we have really found from evidence, because that's what I have to rely upon. I mean, listening to people telling me great things about, I was on the craft and they let me drive it around and it was really great. I went out and I saw Zeta Reticuli and I saw all these great things. You know, that sounds great, but often these are screensavers and screen memories. And when you get past that, again, you find just like the rest of us, you were on the slab screaming, or something else was going on that probably wasn't really as pleasant as what you probably were describing. I can give you a dozen cases of that, and the best way I can illustrate the whole point is that Dr. John Mack, when I met him numerous times, but when we actually sat down and talked business, so to speak, in Istanbul, Turkey, he said, "Why is it always get contactees and you always seem to get abductees?" And I said, "Well, sir," I said, "I respect you and I honor you for your immense contributions in writing and so on, and your Pulitzer Prize and so on." He said, "Okay." And I said, "Then the term argument has here, I said, has a more of a scientific meaning, and it's not personal. He said, not at all. I said, okay. The answer to your question is, sir, in my opinion, you're hypnotizing the screensaver and not the real memory. And as a result, you'll get a contactee almost every time, and you'll get these great stories that simply don't have any basis in fact.
Right.
Not every time, but many times. And I said, the fact that you say that I always get abductees, I said, sir, that's not true at all. I get both. And I said, but I don't tamper with a person's belief system. And when I work with them, I work within their own belief system. I don't care if they're Islamic. I don't care if they're Christian. I don't care if they're atheist. I don't care. I'm not there to reframe their thinking or tamper with their belief systems. I'm there to find out information and evidence. And now if it goes against their thinking of what really happened, that's okay with me. But I'm not there to harm them or to sway them to my beliefs. I don't have any beliefs in that regard. I said it's just a matter of data for me and how I can use that in other forms. I said basically I've got 7 hats that I wear, and all those 7 hats have to review a case or data or evidence to come to some reasonable conclusion.
What is a first layer and a second and a third?
Okay, with in a case in point, a lady came to me. She was a surgical nurse, retired, and Bud Hopkins and I were out to having dinner that night, and fixing to go, and she begged me to work with her, and I said, sweetie, I said, I'm leaving in the morning. It's like 10:30 at night. Bud and I are going to get something to eat, and she says, please, please, please help me. I said, okay, fill out this 20-page form, and when I come back, if you're still here, I'll help you. And she was there. So I worked with her, and anyway, long story short, is she had been to a hypnotist, and they found this block in her memory. And I said, okay. And she says, so we can't get past it. And I said, well, I can do that. And she said, how do you do that? And I said, well, it's not really important for you to know. I said, but basically, I know how he thinks.
Well, how do you
know
find
that? And I said, because I've been there.
Yeah, Derrel, before we get too ahead, what is a block of a memory, and how do you determine that? I mean, how do you know what is a block of memory? Because if you don't remember that memory, how do you know if something's there or not?
Great question. Really great question. A block in someone's memory, like this lady, she said the hypnotist got to this block, and I said, what block was that? And she said, well, all of a sudden, she said, I can remember these 2 little dark figures in the room, and all of a sudden, everything stops. She said, now, if it was real and something was happening, why did it just stop? And she said, finally, I just woke up pretty quickly, apparently, and she said, I noticed semen all over my stomach, and my husband and I had discussed that we weren't going to have sex for, a couple of years because she was going to finish up her nursing business, and then we're going to raise a family. Well, he's sound asleep, didn't have a clue what was going on, and they had pulled this big bendable needle out of her navel area, and it had apparently squirted semen all over her stomach. She gets up and starts slapping her husband, just beat the fire out of him, and he thinks she's absolutely insane, and she's telling him awful things about how he can't even get things bright.
Right.
And a long story short is simply that she said, I don't know what happened, and my husband left me. I said, oh my. And she said, yeah, we had a big fight over that. And I said, okay. And she says, can you get past that block? And I said, if your event's real, of course. And anyway, I did. And she said, anyway, I went with her in her down her and checked the hypnotist to see if there were any mistakes she made or anything like that in what I was doing. And he was right on. And of course, we got to the block, and I said, very good. And so what we did after that is I had her go backwards through the event. And there's a specific way to do that, but I had her go backwards because, you see, you can't lie backwards, and you can't you don't get scared backwards.
Well, I guess that makes sense.
And when I took her through the event, automatically she just popped clean out of trance and with her eyes wide open said, oh, my God. She said they stuck a bendable needle in my stomach. That's where the semen came from. I can't believe I jumped up and slapped my husband, and they were the ones running other. And she just goes on and on and on.
Right.
Well,
right.
that was absolutely true.
When somebody is brought to, you bring them back out of their regression, do they remember everything at that point that they, all of the events that they were hypnotized for to begin with? Is this a real memory?
Not many people, not everybody will remember, especially contactees. They'll often come back and smile and say, "See, I told you I was in the School of Higher Consciousness," or whatever. And sometimes you'll find that they're screaming on the table, screaming, "Leave my little brother alone,"
right,
and so on and so on. But they cannot bear the thought of that, and it's just their subconscious just doesn't want them to recall that in a conscious way. And that's okay with me. I don't mind that. But yeah, that happens, and I've had some abductees that their memories were so. And you have to understand, these entities, they come after you when you're usually 2, 3, 4, or 5 years old, and this has a profound effect upon you when the entities, especially when they look at you and say, "Your parents are not really your parents. We are," and you don't know how to deal with that. Because you're just a little guy and or little girl, and you like, what in the world are they talking about?
Right.
And after a while, you kind of start looking at your mom and dad and say, "Do I really look like mom and dad?" Or, and you start looking at your relatives. I mean, it's a mind ripper. But kids are brainwashed, or if you want to put it in another way, from a contactee point of view, gently taken care of. And but it's to me, it's just a alien Stockholm syndrome, and that's exactly what's going on with a lot of this stuff.
When you are approached, you're found probably a few different ways. Obviously the web, references, reputation. But when you are approached, is it generally because of a memory that they've had from when they were 4 years old, like you were saying? That's generally when you're contacted, and is that something that is very, very, very common? And when you are approached, have they not spoken to anybody before? Do they feel comfortable with you? Is there a reason why they are going to you instead of talking to their husband or wife or family? Or how does that happen? Because they have to cross the line eventually.
They do.
So how does that happen?
The question is both. It happens both ways. Many of these people sometimes will have something will activate them. They'll see something in a particular way. For instance, a bright light in a certain way, or a big one. This was the big one for me. Went to the dentist the first time, laid back in that chair, and that special light that he put over my face, man, I nearly jumped through the ceiling when that happened. That just activated all kinds of memory for me instantly because of the location, the way that was done, the brightness of the light. I couldn't see him anywhere, and they're usually just out of your visual range and until they move into it, and then that's business time. But that's one way. A young man called me here a while back and said, "Well, I remember all my events and everything." He said, "But and I remember my mother being there. So what do you think I should do?" And I said, "I'm going to give you some great advice." And I said, "It's not going to sell any books or do anything for me, but I don't care." And he said, "What's that?" And I said, "My best advice for you is don't open Pandora's box." He said, "Why not?" And I said, "Do you know the story?" He said, "Yes." And I said, "Did you like it?" "No." And I said, "Don't play Pandora then." And he said, "Well, I've got to do it." And I said, "Well, it's your call." And he talked to his mother, and she said, "Yes, of course, every word of that's true. Every memory you have is true like that."
Derrel, let me stop.
The problem is they always brought you back.
Derrel, maybe I'm going to turn myself up. Can you hear me a little louder? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because I was going, Derrel. Wait, what do you mean he said his mom was there? They were both abducted? I don't understand.
In his case, she was standing in the room when they brought him back.
Oh, I got you.
And that was so he thought, well, I must be dreaming all this. So he finally contacted his mother, and I told him not to do it. And she said, "Yes, that's true. Everything you're saying is correct." said, but they always brought you back, honey.
So it was multiple times, and Mom knew about this?
Absolutely. In that case, she did. Absolutely.
Did she go under? Did you regress her too as well?
No, I did not. He was just contacting me online and said, "What do I do?" And I said, "I wouldn't do anything. If you're not having a problem with it and it's not eating your lunch, leave it alone. Your life will be better for it in most cases."
Well, what do you
say? He said, "No, I got to know." And then after that, after he found out it was absolutely totally true, and his mother admitted every word of it, he said, "What do I do now? I don't know what to do." And I said, "I told you not to open that box."
Right, and that's crazy.
It's too late now.
What's the advice that you would give to not only somebody listening to the show, but also on the replays of this show in the future that are listening to this? What advice would you give to somebody that has had experiences and they don't know how to deal with it? What advice would you give to them right now?
I get a lot of these all the time, and bless their hearts, they're just having sometimes a difficult time. Some of them are having an okay time, but they're just trying to figure it out. I've got some physicists. I've got oil field trash. Got all kinds of people that are in this. Intelligence people. They get abducted like anybody else. Doesn't make any difference. Alien doesn't care who you are.
Right.
And anyway, my answer to that is that you really need to how shall I say this? I have a support group. If you really want some help, one of the best things you can do is get into the best support group you can. These people are people who already know where you're at, know your events, and they already get it. And you're not going to say anything to them. They're not going to think you're crazy, and it's all going to be fine. And I think that is one of the best things that can happen for a person. And I encourage it. I have an online support group, and boy, you've got to be an abductee, or they're not going to let you in there in a minute. And the wonderful thing about them is if you're real and you're an abductee or contactee, either one, you're going to meet some of the neatest people in the world that are just exactly like you, and they know everything that's happened to you. You're not going to tell them anything that's scary or off the charts, wonderful or whatever. Many have had the same exact experiences, and they're wonderful people, and they'll help you.
Are most of the abductions and contacts, are they scary, or do some contactees do they enjoy it? Is it fun? Is it you know what I'm saying? Is it an okay experience where they're not terrified?
There are different programs that the alien runs. If he's running a program for you that is, we want you to become a green cosmic conscious individual of planet Earth, and we want you to be socially blah 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 and so on, you're going to do that. There's a 99% chance you're going to do just exactly that. And you can say, I am conscious, I am wonderful, I have done all that, and hey, it's okay with me, but that's a program. You're still doing what you're told. You're just doing it in a little happy little way. And I have no problem with that. But to me, I just want to know, I have to have a baseline for all this stuff. Stories are just stories. That's all they are. And when you start collecting evidence and things like this that support the viewpoints of people or don't, whichever the case may be, because evidence is evidence. I mean, it's just major stuff to me. And we find out that many of these people that are these contactees, it's just rose lily white out there and wonderful for everybody. It may have been for them. It honestly may have been. In a number of the cases, we're finding out that was not the case. I can tell you stories. Even one of the people on John Mack's staff, a PhD, came to me one time, and she cried like a baby.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And she said, "Please don't ever tell John, because I could lose my job."
Well,
now that was I just felt like it fell over when I heard that.
When I had Travis Walton on, Travis had said to me before the show, a week or two before the show, Jimmy, I can't. It's too traumatic for me to just go through this. I'll be happy to come on, but please, I said, we'll talk about whatever you want. But he, for him, it was a terrifying experience.
Yes.
And recounting it minute by minute, because that's a sensational part. That's what everybody wants to hear, or people interviewing Travis think that's what they've got to go there with him because it's sensational, and that's what everybody wants to hear. That I didn't interview him that way, but I could tell for Travis, I could just tell it is something that freaks him out. He went through something pretty scary, and I hope I've never had any experiences, so I don't know, but I'm hoping that it's not that bad for everybody, and so that's why the question. I mean, have you ever just somebody just sit down, they get regress, and they're like, man, and they're laughing, and this is great. I'm having a great time. The food is good over here, I mean, has it ever?
Great cafeteria they got.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what I'm referring to. I mean, because what you see in the movies, I think, can affect, in books and other things that can really affect what you would expect or affect your memory and also your emotions. And you never see, frolicking in the mist with the aliens, dancing around giant mushrooms. You don't see that. So, and I've never heard of that. And, I'm glad to hear that it's not, bad for everybody. What do you think the ratio is? And I don't want to, run this into the ground, but is it 50-50 bad and good? Is it 80% bad, 20% good? Is there...
It is about, in my opinion, based on I've got 1,600 cases worldwide.
That's why I'm asking.
I've talked to thousands and thousands of people. So this may have some degree of respectability to some people, maybe not to others.
Right.
But basically, it runs about 70-30. The 30% are generally contactees, and they're very sweet people, like Stephen, just as good as gold. And I just think the world of Stephen, one of my co-stars on the program Uncovering Aliens.
Steve Jones.
I have great respect for him. We're very good friends. I don't care. We're just as far apart philosophically as any two people can be in this regard for the alien.
Right.
But I respect his opinion. I respect him. And anyway, and I do with others as well. So about 30% of these people I call them the honeybees. They're contactees. A honeybee is a wonderful bee that collects honey, and the interesting thing about honeybees is they can get used to that funny little guy in the white suit that comes there and steals their honey. After a while, they actually think he's supposed to be doing that.
Right.
Well, when you do that to the abductee or the people like me, the abductee, I'm more like a killer bee. You steal my honey, you come after my kid, you come after my wife, and I'm going to come after you. I will hunt you down.
Is that how?
And that's just the way it's going to be. So the abductees are not going to give up their honey that quick, so to speak, and they're not going to. Just a lot of things they're just not going to go along with. So you see a great deal of resistance there on about 70% of these people. And for your audience, I'll tell you for a fact right now that we've got everything from intelligence agents, engineers, scientists. We've got 3 NASA scientists that I know of that are abductees that I know personally, and all the way down to people. I kid you not, I don't know how they find food.
What?
They don't care whether you're a genius. They picked me because I'm a genius. They picked me because I'm a smart guy.
Exactly.
They picked me because I'm super sharp. That's probably not any of the reasons. I have 6 reasons, and some of those are not even it.
Do you ever give advice on how to maybe resist? I mean, has anybody ever popped an alien, cracked him in the head, or anything
Yes,
physical?
sir.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Is that good advice?
Well, depends on whether you want to pop an alien in the head or not. You might want to kiss him or something like that.
Right.
But people have different ideas, and one lady came to me crying. She said, she's crying. She said, they told me if I gave you any more information, they were going to get my children. And I said, sweetie, you think they're going to get your kids anyway? And she said, yes. And I said, then what difference does it matter?
And
I said, do you understand what I'm saying to you? And she said, yes. And I said, okay, let's think about this before we make any decision. And I said, she said, but you got to help me. And I said, sweetie, look, I will, of course, help you in any way I can. And I said, but I said, first of all, I says, as an investigator, I don't want to help you defend yourself against them. She said, why not? And I said, because as an investigator, I said, I'm getting more good information from you than I am all of my abductees combined. You are a virtual, you have better data than I've ever seen from all of these people. And I've been able to prove it up. And I said, I am sitting here stunned, amazed, and she said, well, they're going to make it. I said, all right. I said, listen to me. I said, because as an act of humanity, I have to help you and want to help you, will help you. Yes. And she said, okay. And I said, I'm going to give you a post-hypnotic suggestion to defend yourself. She said, what's that going to be like? I said, I can't tell you any of that. She says, well, when do we start? And I said, we're going to do some closed-eye processing. She said, what's that? I said, close your eyes. And she did. And I said, sleep. And she fell over. And I programmed her. And about 3 weeks later, they came in her room. And when that little guy got about 20 inches in front of her face, she popped her eyes open, jumped up, and tore half his eye cover off. About 3 weeks later, she said, I'm not that strong. So I said, I can fix that. And long story short, again, I said, what do you want to do?
Did she remember, Derrel, did she remember doing it?
Oh, she did. Yes, she did. And she remembers the second time she tore the eye cover clean off. In fact, I think I have that illustration up on your site tonight.
Yeah, actually, I was wondering if that's what that was. And so when you say eye cover, you mean like some type of lens over the eyeball? Not the eyelid.
Yes, I'm telling everybody that that's not an eye.
Okay.
Oh, you heard her eye. It didn't even cry. It didn't even try to get away. It was standing there, and she was holding on to it. She tore the eye cover off, and something she said, like, I said, what was it like? She said, something's dripping, and she moved. She said, something's dripping on my arm. And I said, what is that? And she said, well, I don't know. And I said, what color is it? She said, well, the room, the blue light's in the room, so it's real dark, and I don't know what it is. I said, so could it be blood? And she said, yes. I said, could it be motor oil? And she said, yes. She said, it's just dark. I don't know what it is. So anyway, when I find an individual like this, I test them for memory, and I test them for all kinds of things, and I do all kinds of things to get them to hallucinate and even lie if I can. And she was 100% consistent with her story, and I believe her story to be absolutely true. She recently, by the way, passed away, and I'll put a memorial up for her on my Facebook site, Alien Hunter, on Facebook.com.
A couple of quick questions that have just come in, and I'm going to do this while I have everybody go over to jimmychurchradio.com, and we have the gallery for Derrel up in its usual spot. So head over there, and then we'll discuss some of the stuff that's there, because we accidentally just bumped into it right now. So we might as well have everybody head over there now. And then while everybody is doing that, I'll give everybody a couple of minutes to go over and click. A couple of quick questions that just came in. And then I have one for myself, too. I don't want to forget. Hey, Jimmy. Me and my wife were watching CNN the other night. We were both struck by the face that new reporters seem to have elongated faces with huge eyes. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. We changed to Fox and noticed the same thing was with mostly female reporters. Are aliens getting used to... let me read this again. Are aliens getting us used to their features? And has anybody else noticed this? Well, before you answer that, could you, Mr. Alien Hunter, could you recognize a humanoid alien off the bat? Is there something that you would look for?
I think that I could. I have had a contact with the aliens since my abduction stopped when I was 17. I nearly caught one of them in the bush one time, but the long and the short of it is I wanted to see if I could communicate with the little thing. I could see him through my tent. I could see the shadow of him from the light,
Right.
or from a camp light, and I was able to communicate with him and was absolutely stunned that there was nothing inside his headspace. If somebody didn't tell him what to do, he would not know what to do.
Oh, that's an interesting observation. Robot? Are you suggesting like?
There are at least 3 different kinds of grays. At least 3 different kinds. We feel like we have we have evidence, but until it's tested and peer reviewed, I can't say this thus saith, because I don't know that to be true.
Right.
But the evidence we have from Dr. Carla Turner before she passed away, she gave me evidence that indicated it was from a rape on board a craft, a pig-like creature. Again, someone might have been thinking, I'm in the school of higher consciousness, but something else was going on.
Right.
And there was a witness, a man who stood there and watched and later came forward, and when he heard her story, he told the story, and Dr. Carla Turner put this all together in anyway, great work, and she gave me the evidence before she passed away. And we had discussed a number of things, but one of them, of course, was this phenomena. And the DNA guys not the DNA guys, the forensic scientists who were looking at it freaked completely out. And they were friends of hers. And the guy told her, you will never bring anything like this to me again. You will never use my name in contact with this. He said that compound cannot exist in that matrix.
What do you think about this Fox News talking head, big eyes, elongated faces on the females kind of thing? And
I think I don't think a whole lot of that, but the question is that could the alien be getting us used to things? Well, it would be far easier to see it in TV and books and things like that, because you see a lot more of that. But the fact is, if I took a picture, if you were having an alien event right now, and I could film it actually film it while it's going on, and you drew a picture of the alien event after it was over, like the face and everything, every detail, I can just almost assure you that the alien that I have on film is going to be a little bit different, if not a lot different, than your drawing.
I've got the questions just keep coming in. Okay. Okay. I feel Travis Walton's abduction was by accident, while Whitley was continuous and planned. Whitley Strieber. So why in Derrel's opinion are these folks being abducted? In addition, besides the Greys, which races are doing the abductions? For example, tall whites, which do not abduct.
Great question.
Yep, and but which other races does he find are doing the abducting?
Okay. First of all, Travis is a friend of mine, and he views at this point in his life that his abduction was in fact an accident. That probably is true. It could be. The evidence supports it, in my view, in his thinking, and the reason for that is because there does not appear to be any follow-up abductions. So that's a pretty good indication that may have been an accident on their part, that it was a one-time deal, and that's entirely, totally possible, and I support him in his thinking. It's his case. I wasn't there. I wasn't standing there, and he was, so I'm going to go with his viewpoint. The second question is concerning Whitley or other people. Anybody that look, 45% of the people taken in these events are Native American, Indian, Irish, or Celtic. Period. We know that right off the bat.
Right.
45%, and the fact is that their family lineage is part of it. This will, if you're being abducted, for instance, in my case, it was my brother as well, possibly my dad, and then my brother married into a whole group of abductees that are all good Methodists.
Right.
But it doesn't make any difference.
Right.
So there's a family lineage in this thing, and these entities, they're looking for certain things. They're not picking up everybody in your family, but if you're an abductee and you're in your family and you think, I'm the only one, check grandma, grandpa, aunts, and uncles privately. Don't ask in front of everybody, and you may be shocked at the answers that you're going to get from your relatives.
This it came in earlier from Chuck. I wanted the conversation to kind of fall into this subject before I ask his question, and it is: Does the guest, Derrel, do you have any theories on their agenda?
I do. First of all, let me finish that last question I didn't answer. I only got part of it answered.
Okay.
Who does the abductions? They're all in on it. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. There's 7 primary models. I don't. When someone asked me here a while back, and I think I horrified them with my answer. They said, "How many races of aliens do you think here? 50, 60, or 70?" And I said, "Oh, probably." First of all, I'm not. I don't think there are any alien races here. And I mean, their teeth almost fell out and hit the floor. And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "What I mean is your assumptions are assumptions, and you probably don't have any evidence for it." And I said, the evidence to me leans that someone has created, hatched, cloned, or manufactured certain entities, 7 models in particular,
right?
A reptile-like guy, a little gray, a taller guy called the Doctor, a humanoid called the Nordic, a Bigfoot guy, and so on and so on. I said, and a mantis, and I said, my point being that if you look at those things carefully, where would you get the DNA for a mantis, reptile, humanoid, etc.? Probably planet Earth. So somebody probably got this DNA from here and hatched, cloned, and manufactured all kinds of neat things out there, probably not far in this solar system, by the way. And we think we feel like some pretty good, decent data on that. And my point being that the ones who are abducting, they're doing it because they're told to. You say, well, some of them are good and some of them are bad. That's not true. These entities, we've got one entity that's a humanoid, a Nordic type, and he is the best guy. These treated people so good that they think he's the best thing since sliced bread.
Right.
The problem is, not long after that, he's torturing another abductee that he used to treat real nice.
Exactly.
So what does that mean? That they're immoral? No, they're amoral. They don't have any morals because they're hatched, cloned, or made, manufactured, and they do what they're told. That they're running programs that somebody's running on them, and then they're running programs on you of what it is that somebody else wants done. And if you want to consider that wonderful in saving the Earth, which they haven't done in at least 6,000 to 8,000 years,
right?
Then that's fine with me. But the evidence to me doesn't support that view, and they're all in on it. It's my point. If one of them is abducting you, I assure you that database is open to every one of them.
I'm going to have Whitley's going to be on the show. Oh, I just messed up. I never announced my guest in advance. Okay, well, he's going to be on the show next week. And there's one thing for Whitley. Now, first off, the book Communion scared the crap out of me. And that book, when I read it the first time, I literally read the book with one eye and had the other eye out in the room. That was a bad experience. And but anyway, he's going to be on the show next week. And one of the things that he's kind of come to the understanding, and I'm going to let him explain it next week, but I've heard him talk about this enough now, that he's under the assumption that this has something to do with death now too as well. And his contactees, the blue guys, I think he calls them blue, that they're from the other side. And I find that interesting too. And have you had any of your abductees make that reference that Whitley's been talking about lately?
No, not at all.
Okay.
And in fact, when I've had people send me pictures of aliens, say, "Oh, this is true," and look at this and everything, I send it out to all my abductees, and almost in every case, they'll give me this resounding, "Who made this up?"
Yeah, that's
the
interesting.
Problem with when you got rapists or horrible people doing things out there, and these people have met and seen them personally over a period of years,
right?
They kind of know who it is you're talking about. And and it's amazing to me that these blue guys and tall whites and all these guys show up only after certain TV programs come on.
Right.
And I find that real curious. And as an investigator who watches this stuff. And, I mean, when The Matrix came on, everybody started talking about, have you been plugged or unplugged?
Right.
What's the deal? And isn't it interesting that that wasn't true then, before.
Right.
And, I mean, it just...
Well, let's talk about that for
amazing.
a second, Derrel. Let's talk about that. when a program or a movie or anything comes out, like you're saying, do you see the influx coming to you too? And is it because it didn't happen to the subject, but they wanted it to be real, or is there a mental issue that they maybe are dealing with, and,
Sure.
and do you have to confront that?
Sure, that's true, and I've seen writers do the same thing. I swear, they'll wait until the next show comes on, and I promise you, there's going to be a whole new influx of blue aliens out there.
Right.
There weren't any before. Now there are some blue entities that do show up, in, fairly rare in literature. They're there, but anyway, it's a good marketing thing, and I think you probably see a lot of stuff on that. I mean, I've had. I can't even begin to tell you how many people do this.
Caller, turn your radio down. We've got a call coming in right now. Hi, who's calling? Are you?
This is Paul. Are you guys there?
Yeah, Paul. How you doing? You got a question, and where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Mississippi. Derrel's my older brother, basically.
Oh, okay. So, so you guys know each other.
Yes, if that's Paul.
He didn't know I was going to call in, though.
Okay. So,
is this Paul from Mississippi?
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I know who it is.
Okay.
How's it going, Hawk?
Hey, pretty good. What's your question?
I couldn't resist calling in right away because the time seemed opportune to jump in and lend some testimony to what Derrel was saying. I'll tell you, I was a person that had gone through my entire life from my childhood up through my mid-adulthood thinking I was crazy. And had several things in my past that I could not understand, didn't talk about with people, had no clue how to wrap my mind around them. And I actually heard Derrel, the first time I heard Derrel was on Coast to Coast AM, and when I talked to him finally, and he started explaining my own life to me without me ever having told him anything about it, it became clear to me that, wow, this man really knows what he's talking about.
And was if I can ask you, it was Bill, right?
Paul.
Oh, Paul. I'm sorry, Paul. It was Derrel the first person that you talked to about it, or the second?
Well, I had before that there were folks that I had spoken with, through the course of the years who had similar experiences, but it's kind of like being in a group in a bar with a bunch of drunk guys everybody trying to explain something they just saw, because the thing that really kind of pressed me to start dialing you guys was when you were talking about Whitley with the blue guys, something that I think is so important for people to understand. And this support group that Derrel's talked about, I'm a member of that, and I can tell you right now, my brothers and sisters there, they are so in tune with reality, with all of this. And what these things will do is they will literally plant images in your mind. They will literally draw you. They can in an instant understand everything about your entire being, what you fear, what you love, what you hold true, what you think is false. And depending on what you've come to be at that point, and keep in mind, like Derrel was saying, they may have already been working on you from all the way back to when you were in the womb. For instance, Derrel had explained to me, he asked me a question about my childhood and asked me if I was adopted.
Right.
And it was the most outlandish thing. I had no idea how he could have figured that out. I was literally on the phone looking around like you were talking about reading Whitley's book with one eye on the book and one eye up in the room.
Right.
Same kind of thing. Here I am on the phone with the alien hunter, and I'm looking around me going, where is this guy? How can he even know this?
Right.
Well, I was an orphan when I was a child. And when I was adopted, raised by a loving family, and had so many things happen in my youth. When he talks about the lineup of the usual suspects, I can tell you about nights that I woke up, as a child, having wet my bed, looking out my window, and there's Bigfoot looking in my bedroom. There was a monster that lived in my closet. There was all kinds of stuff that I literally thought I was nuts.
Right.
And when I started to realize that there's so many other people that have these same things going on, it all of a sudden made sense. And real quick, back to being adopted. Just recently, I tracked down my biological mother, because in the state where I was born, you're actually legally able to get a copy of your original birth certificate.
Right.
Well, and I had wanted to track down my biological parents, if for no other reason, just to get a medical history of my family. Well, I come to find out, I always knew this somehow, but come to find out after I talked to her, well, guess what? I'm Irish.
Really?
And yeah, and as Derrel explained, a great percentage of people, especially in our group, when you start talking to people and look at their genetic makeup, you find out that, wow, this is really tracing along generation to generation along these bloodlines. And it's just a very amazing thing. So I guess I just wanted to call in, touch base, and let everybody know that if you are in a position where you have, things like you are just a quick list that comes to mind, because what I've done since I've talked to Derrel is I now have an ability to recognize people that have gone through this stuff. And on Facebook, I help people in chat groups. If I notice somebody, I'll contact them privately and ask them a list of questions that I kind of learned over the years through talking to the people in this group and to Derrel and to his organization. And before you know it, I can show people that, yeah, you got something going on. And some of these people, I will always invite them to contact my brother Derrel. I just tell them, look, I can identify this stuff for you, and I know what to look for. But if you really want to get answers about this, here's a guy you should call, because he can help you out.
Hey, Paul, let me ask you a question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Have you ever been in line at a grocery store and just turned to somebody and the both of you instantly knew that you were contactees without speaking?
For me personally, this is the thing about this. It's something that there's a curriculum for every person that goes through this, and it's a strange thing, because for me personally, I don't really understand why, but a lot of it, the way Derrel's explained to me that his suggestion, I kind of believe this, is that there's a lot that's been masked from me, kind of because that's what the load that I can handle, and it's not so much a glance or a look, but if you get into, for me personally, if I get into a conversation, it can be two or 3 minutes into a conversation, listening to somebody, the way they talk, the things that they talk about, and I'll be able to get a hint right away that yeah, this person's got something going on.
Hey, Paul, I'm going to go. I've got to grab some other calls. Would you call? You should call back into the show next week, and if you don't mind sharing your story with us.
I'd love to. That'd be great.
Thank you, Paul. You have a great night.
Thank you. God bless. Talk to y'all later.
You got it. The calls are coming in. Let's just, if you don't mind, Derrel.
Fire away.
Okay, you're live with Derrel Sims. Who's calling?
Christine from Rockland.
Okay, how you doing? What was the name again? I'm sorry?
Christine from Rockland.
Oh, hi, Christine
California.
from Rockland. You have a question for Derrel? How you doing tonight?
Pretty good. Well, yeah, I've sort of got a question and an idea. I'm thinking that among the DNA that's in these things, and he did not mention this fact in the book of his that I read, but he raised a question for wondering what it was. I mean, obviously some of it's reptilian, but I think some of it just might be amphibian. And there's also a question I want to ask him about the copy of the book he sent me.
Okay, well, he's online with us right now, Christine, so you can ask him yourself. He's right here.
Yeah.
Derrel, can you hear Christine okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, she said something about...
Hi.
Okay, go ahead, Christine.
Hi.
Hi, I'm the one in Rockland, California, InfoWolf one. You had mentioned either in the book or somewhere else that you were kind of puzzled about what sort of DNA is in those things. I mean, obviously some of it's reptilian, but I'm thinking amphibian is playing a role in it also, at least for some of them, because there's this repeated reference to permeability of the skin that they eat by smearing this mix on their bodies and absorbing it. Some of them may have some small amount of mandible and teeth and others don't. A long time ago, years ago, I read that a lot of abductees get turned on to environmentalism. And if you've got a plan going that involves either maintaining bases currently that are under threat from pollution or creating some, you're going to want people, you're going to want to do something about issues that could affect some of your workers that have permeable skin. And another thing about the lack of a TT, well, reptiles, they have this thing called a hemipenis usually. It's not the usual thing, but it's not usually visible. It's like both sexes have a slit, but the male keeps his genitalia inside. I think dolphins do also, unless it's extruded to actually use. And so that could be also an explanation for some of it. But again, hatching, cloning, you wouldn't have much in the way of a belly button. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, Derrel. Hey, Christine.
There was one question. There was one question I wanted to ask. You sent me a copy of your book. It was autographed to somebody else. You got it mixed up. But I noticed it was very interesting, very informative. But I noticed that
on the part of the person that sent it out. They got it wrong in the wrong package.
Okay.
Well, that's all right. That's all right. That's all right. I suppose the one autographed to Christine will end with Wrangle. But what I was wondering was, did you put any kind of a psychic charge or something on it? Because I noticed two things that happened after the book had been in my environment very quickly. First, my entity problems are not physical, trackable, stuff like that usually. Occasionally, rarely. There's something that a person I have on tap who can see things can see. But for the most part, it's mostly stuff that I kind of mentally see. And this ramped up considerably. As if there was something about the book that was strengthening them. But on the other hand, my own ability to get rid of them ramped up. So I was wondering if there was, if this was just the effect of them having been in your life affected the book and affected me, or if and also the ability to fight them off ramping up. Did you and get more rid of them? Something impinging, I think, on my mind.
Okay, I think is anything. Go ahead, Christine.
I was wondering if you had, by any chance, put some kind of a psychic charge or prayer or something on the book to increase the ability of the reader to resist these things.
Excellent question, Christine.
Good
thank
question.
you. Yeah,
and,
thank you, Christine.
I appreciate your call. There are a number of things I did not put in the book. Number one is because my my media consultant said, "My God," she said, you should have written 5 books out of the one."
Right.
And I said yes, but I wanted to give they beat me in the head for 5 years to write it, and I said so I did it as quickly as I could to give them at least a handbook to at least figure out how to find evidence and to get some kind of sense of what was going on out there instead of some of these outlandish ideas that absolutely have no fact and base, no evidence. Anyway, the bottom line is that I do have a lot of people who are concerned about my welfare and the welfare of many of us, abductees and contactees, and I ask people, I tell them, whatever you do, I don't care whether you like them, don't like them, or whatever it is, I ask that you do pray for me and for all that I do, that it might be a comforting or a good thing to all them, whether you're a contactee or abductee. It makes no difference to me.
Right.
I don't care about the disbelievers because it doesn't make a bit of difference.
Right.
I'm not in the business of trying to prove anything to anybody or I don't try to garner a group of people for my side. I don't have a side. My side is evidence that we have and what it's going to come out to be and what really is true. And that's the bottom line. So if there's any charge that's there, it's simply because of people who do care and
a positive
you call
influence,
it send good energy to me or prayer or whatever.
Right. Okay. Let me change gears really quick. We sort of got these questions in on the email, but we kind of skated around it because you and I started talking about some other things. So let's go back to Chuck's question, which was, during regression, has their agenda been revealed to you, or agendas?
Okay, what we have found is that they lie, and they lie consistently. That's why that was the first thing I found in investigating these cases that stunned me after being in the CIA. One of the things we did in the CIA was to lie and lie consistently. Why would we do that? Well, all intelligence agencies do it. It's called a cover story. You have to have a cover story to hide the fact of what you're really doing, because you can't afford for the enemy or others that you, for whatever reason, don't want to know what it is you're doing, because if they did know, they could co-opt that, they could fix it, they could alter it, and they could do all kinds of bad things to mess up their program.
Interesting.
And the aliens were doing the exact same thing, and I thought, well, if that doesn't beat all. And I said, well, I'm going to start looking at see if there's any cover stories, and there were lots of them. We're from the planet whatever, and we're from doing this, Zoltar.
Right.
And they would tell people all kinds of stuff. And I was just amazed. And what I started looking for was evidence that people, these people I talk about with blocks? Now, this is where the real information really comes in for me. The people who have blocks either saw something, or the alien thought you saw something, or you might have heard something or seen something that they did not want you to know or remember. And if you can get past those blocks, you can find out some really neat stuff. Some of it is, in fact, related to their agenda. Their agenda, in my view, is based on, number one, they're doing this for someone else. Number two, I'm not even sure that the so-called alien even knows where. Do you remember the movie Blade Runner and the replicants?
Yep.
Well, now that's a good example. The Blade Runner and the replicants there, the replicants didn't even know. That
they were replicants.
They were given a past.
Right.
And the alien, in my opinion, some of them do not even know. They're given a history, and they believe that. They tell that to the abductee, and the abductee says, oh my gosh, they told me all kinds of neat things about their world, and their world is dying, and they need our DNA to do all these neat things. Really? Okay. Well, that's interesting, because their DNA comes from this planet. So that kind of doesn't make any sense. Well, they're doing medical experiments on us. Well, no, not really. So the doctors and medical professionals we've had look at some of their so-called procedures, they're tantamount to torture, not medical procedures in some of these cases.
So how do you get through, well, first off, past the block and then down a layer or two, but how do you know if they're always lying, or if they don't even know what the truth is that they are speaking? Like the replicant reference. I like that, actually. Yeah. Then how do you get to the actual agenda?
I'll give you a case in point. I can give you a much better one, but I'll give you a short little one.
Okay.
An individual came to me, and he had a block. He told all of his event up to one point, and then he said, I said, well, were you there any longer? Yes, about an hour. And I said, well, what happened? He said, I have no idea.
Okay.
And, okay. Anyway, we got past the block, and he had I'd given him a post-hypnotic suggestion to, when they have you on the table, sometimes they'll leave you alone, and they'll put that large black eye right next to yours and say, don't move or you will not remember. I want you to go into a deep sleep now and all that. And you lay there, and all of a sudden when they got out of the room, my post-hypnotic suggestion went on, and he was able to, because of this system that I've developed, he was able to walk around, and he went into a room that they told him, never go into, you'll die if you go in there. Well, he went in there, and he didn't die, obviously. And what he saw were these tanks of pure, it looks like milk in them, and it was the consistency of milk. And he couldn't figure out, well, what in the, there are hundreds of them. He's like, well, what in the world's that? And anyway, he gets in there looking around, and there was a shake on the craft as if they had had the turbulence or hit something or whatever. and one of the tanks kind of shook more than the others, and all of a sudden he saw what looked like an elbow of a human being, and then the face leaned against. Through the milk, you could see the face leaning through the clear glass or whatever it was in the container.
Well, that's terrifying.
Screamed and freaked completely
exactly
out. He realized all those tanks probably had human-like creatures or whatever they were in them.
What? Okay, I'm very rarely caught for a loss at a loss for words. I was picturing all of that as you were describing it to me. I want to jump back to this email really quick, and then, you know what? No, I'm going to read this email to you later. I'm going to read this newest one. They're coming in. I can't keep up with them all. Is this because it's exactly what we're talking about? So Ben, I promise, Ben, you know who you are. You're my friend. I will get to your email, but I'm going to do this one here from Lewitt. It says, has your guest ever acquired physical evidence from his own or others' abductions for purposes of definitive proof? And I know that you have the largest collection ever. So why don't we talk about that? And when you were telling me about the fluid here, I was just wondering, was there a way, has anybody come back from an abduction with a vial of fluid or any physical trace evidence? And what have you found? What do you have in your possession?
People come back from their events, and many of them don't even know. That's why it takes a special way of looking and investigating these cases. They don't know that they have evidence on or in them. Most of the evidence does not come from, oh, look what I did. I stole some stuff and I did this. That's generally 99.99% time not going to happen. And if the alien finds it out, they're going to come get it anyway. But what we do find is physical evidence on people when they come back from abduction. I call it an alien fingerprint, and it's a fluorescent trace on the individuals. In other words, if you put a black light next to a person that's physically actually taken, and I'm sorry to say this to most abductees, but 80% of your experiences, you didn't go anywhere in most cases. 20% of the cases, you did go somewhere, and there is, in fact, in most cases, evidence on you of that event. And that's why you don't have evidence on you out of 80% of the events, which are real, but they occur probably in your room.
Well, that would go with any crime scene, wouldn't it?
Thank you.
Yes.
So the evidence is when the alien touches you, he leaves a fluorescent trace that leaves a physical trace on you that penetrates your skin subdermally on contact. It won't wash off. It won't come off. We've had chemists try to take it off. We've had doctors. They can't get it off. It will be absorbed by your body in usually within 24 hours, some in rare cases up to 22 weeks. That is one of the things. And some of the fluorescence is procedural, and some of it is from casual contact like touch. You'll see long green fingers traced. When you see a black light, you'll see the markings from these entities that have touched these people. That's one. The second evidence that showed up in 1960 in my case was implantation. This was through the nasal passage. The point is that the event happened. It really did. I know it did, but I can't prove it because at 12 years old, I don't know. I personally didn't even know what an alien was, except by whoever they are. They keep getting me, and I don't know nothing I can do about it, so to speak. And second, whenever I went to my VA doctor and other doctors, they looked at me, and first of all, they found my rib cage had been broken. Well, that's interesting because I don't have any broken ribs. You want to know what? I do. So how do you have broken ribs and not know it? Well, they damage you, like in my last event. They work you over pretty good, and then they realize, oops, we got to fix this guy or he's going to remember all this. So they fixed me. But the problem is the line on the brake is still there, and how do you fix somebody's broken rib cage overnight?
Are you saying they beat you up? Is that what happened?
I was treated very roughly.
Well, that would be pretty rough, yeah, for a broken rib.
Broken ribs is pretty serious. When I was 12 years old in the abduction event with the implantation, they also cut a circular hole on the inside of my nasal septum. When an ENT looked at it, he jumped back and said, "When did you have that surgery?" And I said, "I never had any surgery." I didn't tell him the truth. And I did tell my primary care physician at the VA the truth, and she looked at me with that Boo Radley look on her face of like, oh my God, you know.
Right.
And I said, well, young lady, before you look at me with that Boo Radley look on your face, I said, I work with some pretty neat guys, neuroscientists, and a cardiovascular surgeon, actually 3 of them at the time, and a brain surgeon. I said, you couldn't carry their luggage. So don't look at me like I'm nuts. I said, because I am, these guys you couldn't carry their luggage for. They're crazier than you are. But in one of our abductions, we did have some pretty definitive case proof. In the abduction, the implants were given in a blinded study to Los Alamos, New Mexico Tech, and they showed the implants to be from a rare meteorite from the Widmanstatten or the Yautsheng meteorite. They had a group of 11 elements surrounding them on the outside. They had no idea why in the world a rare meteorite would have these elements surrounding them. And so on. There were a lot of interesting things about that, but the most important thing was they were in fact extraterrestrial, because meteorites tend to be that way.
That's right.
And they were found inside a human being. Now, what we didn't tell them is that they were wrapped in a cocoon of human skin.
Okay, and
that was impossible according to the pathologist, because keratin cannot be found deep inside the body, but it was. And a Nobel laureate told us that if you could replicate that process in a lab with the evidence that you have, Mr. Sims, he said, you could literally, you may have a Nobel laureate find right now. So that's interested some scientists in some respects, and so on and so on. But evidence and proof are two different things.
Well, what part of the body?
Evidence to one person is one thing, and proof to another is something else. So it depends on what you classify that as.
Oh, sure. Well, what part of the body are implants mainly found on? We always hear behind the ear or inside the elbow. Like these, see, you laugh because you know the truth. So,
in fact, I didn't tell anybody at first, and my former partner that I later fired,
okay,
he wrote in his book, and he said, well, he saw these implants appear on the left side of the body. And the only problem with that is that's the only side of the body I told him that I'd let him look at anything on. They were also on the right side. They're also in the middle. In my book on implants, there's one on the inside of the lady's hemisphere, and it's as big as a lifesaver. In fact, it was there for a couple of years, and then it moved to the other hemisphere, and then later it disappeared. If you go to my site, alienhunter.org, and click on, there's 2 people with implants in their bodies right there. In fact, Stanton Friedman and a bunch of other people were present when I did the examination on this one guy at Roswell, but both those people are there. You can see the video right there if you want to look. But that's the evidence that has showed up. They show up all over implants are extremely rare. Please don't everybody call me and tell me all about all the implants you got, because I look at hundreds of x-rays every year, and almost none of them have any real implants in them. They're very rare.
My producer has texted me now 3 times and is saying, you mentioned peer review. What have you had peer reviewed? And what are you implying by that when you say peer review?
Well, a peer review is, okay, when you go out and you have some evidence, you don't go out and say, oh, well, we know all about this, and we can tell you this, and we know all this. You don't know that. Well, I had this looked at by a buddy who was, in my opinion, was a really good scientist. You don't know that to be absolutely true. If it's not been peer-reviewed, other people, other scientists, other people of that ilk or that skill level or whatever need to look at these tests and so on and see if, in fact, they were done correctly, that was proper, and so on and so on. And when they look at that and then review it, as some of my implant stuff was actually in a scientist contacted me from the Royal Society of Chemical Engineers, and he published some of my implant work not under the term implants, but under another way, and because he felt that it had that kind of credibility. But again, that depends on the individual. Some people are going to have to see me tie an alien down and then drag an implant out of him or out of his pocket, or they're not going to believe anything.
Right. Okay, check this out. Jimmy, here's a few questions I've always wanted to ask folks like Derrel that do hypnotic regression therapy for alien abductees. Question: assuming alien abduction is real, how does hypnotic regression help advance our general knowledge of ufology?
Okay, great question. Thank you for that.
And that's from Dennis. That's from Dennis, by the way. Okay, go ahead.
Fantastic. One of the things that I do in fact, when CNN came here for 3 days and stayed at my home, and they said, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing," and so on. Then they turned around and wrote an entirely different story after they. Anyway, there you go, CNN.
Right.
But anyway, the point is that the evidence that I showed them was they said, "Well, we're using hypnosis on people. That's all skewed, and you probably led them." And I said, "Listen to me." I said, "I do hypnotic anesthesia for people in surgery. I tend to not make mistakes, because if I make a mistake doing that, you're going to be in a lot of pain, you know what I mean?" And so I said, "That's a bad joke for you," but I said, when you say stuff like that, I said, be qualified when you tell me stuff like that. I said, then we had a guy, I regressed him back to childhood. He was taken with another little boy in Houston, Texas, numerous times as a little tiny boy. They were picked up during early morning and out in their yard, and they were brought back and dropped off in Houston's a big place, dropped off in another place in Texas. These were kids who were 2 and 3 years old when it started, and it ended when they're 4 or 5. This went on, and they could never find the perpetrator. The police always had a bulletin out for looking for them, and they'd find them in another part of Houston. And the kids had no idea how they got there. Now, one of the things I did when I questioned this guy in his memory as a little tiny boy, which how can you trust that? Well, I asked him what the weather was like. Do you know what the weather was like on May the 13th whenever you were 8 years old?
No.
I would like to know the answer to that. And if you can tell me that consistently in your events, I probably think I may really have a memory here.
They were always bright, sunny days. You know.
Yeah. Well, these are often storms and things like that, but you go back to the weather record and check those dates and times.
Right.
That's just one of the ways you check, but there's all kinds of ways you can check. And I don't consider hypnosis like a lot of people do, the panacea for alien abduction. I'm going to hypnotize you and I will. No, that's not necessarily true. In fact, we don't even hypnotize people in most cases unless they ask for it, and then it's usually when your case is over. And the only reason I'm interested in doing it at that point is to see if all my evidence and the things and the concepts that I've come up with in your case, if they're accurate and consistent with memory or recall, whichever we find inside you.
So
some people still do recall and memory.
Right. So you're suggesting, or you're saying that you only go there if you need to go there.
That's right.
Your certifications, by the way, in your CV. I mean, I don't know how many are there, but it looks like it's in the dozens. It's a long list of certifications and diplomas and stuff, and it's very impressive. In other words, the only reason why I'm even suggesting that is because you're not a fly-by-night hypnotist. That's not what your game is about when it comes to – no, that's not what it's about, and that is a very, very, very serious part of your profession. And so when you were saying earlier – I wanted to get back to this. You were saying earlier when somebody comes up to you and asks you about it, I like your reaction, which is, man, you better come at me with something because I'm for real. And I get that, and I like that reaction, and I don't hear that often. There's a second part to his question, by the way, from Dennis, which is this. He says, isn't the study of ufology a purely scientific question regarding how UFOs can get here and not a question of alien anthropology? See, we have smart listeners here, man.
You got some pretty astute listeners.
Absolutely.
I'm very impressed with the questions. First of all, I have 7 hats that I wear, and one of them's a UFO hat. Now, my UFO hat can be fooled. Most of us who wear UFO hats in the UFO community, we have been fooled before. and I can list them off and who did it over the years. That's true. But I have another hat, which is a cop hat. When I put my cop hat on and I get to interview you, I don't believe anything you say. In fact, I think you've got a scam going on, and I'm going to find out what it is.
Right.
And I have another hat, and it's a medical and scientific hat. And the medical hat, it's after evidence. It only wants to see, I don't care what you say, I want to know what evidence medically or medical records you have to support your claims. And so on. All these different hats have different views, and some of them don't even agree with each other. But the big hat, the two big hats that I like most of all, is a profiler hat. And a profiler basically is a hat that that can, when a cop doesn't know how to handle like a serial killer, he can't figure out, he's done everything he can. The thing he'll do is take that then to a profiler. And that profiler will review and check that and do all kinds of neat things. And he will almost smile at that cop, and when he finishes with it, he'll tell you basically the internalization, the ideas that the guy had who did the crime, and so on and so on and so on. He'll tell you about the MO, which is the success of the crime. You've heard about the MO, of course. And he'll tell you about the ritual signature, which is the needs or patterns of the offender. And he'll tell you about the signature or the trademark or calling card, which reflects the compulsion of the criminals beyond just committing the crime. My point being, this is all true of the alien. There is no difference. And we can literally, by profiling these aliens, can tell you that the Greys didn't do certain things and others did, and who basically authorized this and what it's for.
Right.
And that is some pretty amazing stuff.
Well,
so all these hats are different, and they give me different tools to use.
Right. So some of it can be anthropology. Some of it is not.
In my opinion, it does. It is.
Right.
Because what I have found is that the alien, which everyone assumes is from another planet, of course, or another dimension, if you want to go a little higher in the thinking, so to speak. But the fact is, what I look at and what I've found, and from some of the preliminary DNA stuff we're looking at and have from the entity, apparently,
right?
If that data is true, and I don't know it to be gospel yet, but it looks pretty good. If that's true, and some of the scientists seem to think it is, but again, it's not peer-reviewed, so I don't have an opinion yet.
Right.
But if it is true, the DNA comes from here. So the question goes back to, if they came from other planets, why are they coming from here?
When you say coming from here, what do you mean? Human
human
DNA?
When you talk to the, when
this
when you
Earth,
look at the
of this Earth DNA.
Yes.
Okay.
If you look at the mantis being, where do you think that DNA comes from?
Well, you're going to have to
Earth
tell me.
Earth is a collection place of DNA, and these guys, whoever they are, came here and got all this stuff, not the alien, but whoever made them, came here and got the DNA from Earth and reconstructed these entities to interact with human beings, and then the entities called themselves aliens from other planets. Well, that's pretty convincing stuff. However, in ancient times, they called themselves different names. They called themselves the fairies,
right?
Of the little folk and all that. And now it's not like the stuff in the book. If they didn't like you, or you did stuff they didn't like, they might not bring you back.
Right.
And over in Islam, the jinn of Islam, these are pretty bad little guys that live in a little metal-like container and fly around and stuff, and they might not bring you back. They're really scary people. But I'm saying that in every age, they've been something different to everybody else. They basically have lied to every generation that's been here, and they've taken on a new vista or a new persona, almost godlike in some respects, and almost demonic-like in other cases, and almost now we're so smart and we carry a briefcase instead of a club and jerking hides off animals. We're so smart with our iPads and everything. We actually think they came from other planets.
Well, when you say it like that, let me go back to those two little boys in Houston. Did the aliens forget where they lived? I mean, I don't understand how they were dropped off in another part of town. Was there a reason why they dropped them off on the other side of Houston and not back where they grabbed them originally from?
Wonderful questions. I love these questions. Great stuff. That's what I wanted to know. The problem is the alien makes mistakes. The guys who pick you up and bring you back, are the least qualified of anybody of the aliens, in my opinion. And I use the word alien lightly because, in my opinion, they're entities. They're not even aliens. But we'll use the word alien because most people are familiar with that. The alien, the small guy, has an IQ of about 80, and he sometimes he can't. As Bud Hopkins referenced me one time, he said, "They're so dumb they can't even get your clothes on right."
Right.
That's
right,
true.
Right.
They'll give sometimes the other abductee with you that went. You'll be wearing his clothes and you'll come back with his. And in one case, they picked up a truck and 2 abductees in Fort Collins and dropped them off in Dalhart, Texas.
Well, Whitley said one time he came back in his wife's clothes, right? Or something, his wife's nightgown. He woke up wearing his wife's nightgown. That would explain that. But so I guess that would make sense. They're just dropping you off in a general vicinity. They don't care about you. There's no affection there. You're just, you're just some biology that they've picked up off of the ground. I guess that would make sense. They don't have to take you back to the same house that they picked you up from. You don't have any rights, I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah. You can't complain about that. But the poor kids, they have no idea, where they are in Houston. That's kind of a drag.
All the kids could remember is that the guy that got us, that took us away, had large black eyes and a real bald head. The skinny little guys. Of course, that didn't go over with the cops very well.
We got a call.
They wanted the guy with a mask on that takes little kids somewhere.
Right. Hey, Derrel, we got a call coming in. Okay, you're live with Derrel Sims, Fade to Black. Who's calling?
This is Janice Denny. I was the one who did the illustration that is posted up. I'm a friend of his.
Okay. Derrel, we never did get to the gallery tonight.
Could I just say something about Janice? She did she's done some of the most incredible paintings and drawings I've ever seen in the UFO field. And the bottom line is, the reason I posted that one up there, and I had some information on it, but it didn't get posted. But Janet, her name is on the drawing, and it shows a drawing of what looks like me. And the reason I posted that is because I've got about a dozen of those drawings from different abductees from all over the United States, all the way to Turkey, and most of these people had never met me before, and they drew pictures of me, and at least half of them were told, "Don't give information to this man if you ever meet him."
Is that right, Janice?
20 years before they met.
Yes.
Me.
Now, Janice, is it the one that's called Star Seeds? Is that the one?
That's what I called
it's the one with the man standing with a mustache.
With a cape?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I went to the site and looked at it.
Okay, Janice, fantastic drawing, by the way. And we were going to get to this, Derrel and I, and we knew Derrel is such a great guy, and I knew that this conversation was going to do just what it did. We had certain plans, we had an agenda, and we went way off the rails tonight. So, but thanks for putting up with us, and I hope that you've been enjoying the show. But Janice, tell us about this picture.
Well, when I do something, I don't plan it. Things just start developing as I start drawing. So it was more of a spontaneous drawing. And this developed because if you really look at the illustration, behind Derrel, there's a door. And in the background of that door is a small gray.
Oh, I see it. Yes. Now,
and how?
Go ahead, Janet. Well, I was going to ask you a question really quick. Had you met Derrel before you did this picture?
I've never met Derrel. We've only communicated by phone and emails and letters, and I sent him a bunch of my drawings.
Because this is Derrel. I'm looking at the picture. That's obviously Derrel. And so I just have to ask. I mean, there was something going on. There's some kind of connection there. But Derrel...
I've even had dreams about him, too, and they're really peculiar dreams. And
well, Janice, let's not go there. This is a family show. And I'm not making light of this. I mean, seriously, when and I didn't know that you were calling into the show tonight, and you and I have never met. When Derrel sent me these pictures today for the show tonight, and me and the staff here were reviewing the pictures. When I saw this, I went, "Oh, okay." They drew a picture of Derrel. That's actually pretty cool. But you're telling me that at that time you have never seen a picture of him, and this just came to you, and
yes.
Derrel, how did it hit you when you got this when you saw this picture the first time?
Well, I simply smiled to myself, and I said, "Oh my gosh!" I said, "Here we go again." And I've seen this before with other people. And when I went to Turkey, a lady sat there and waited for nearly an hour when all the crowd got finished. And I said, "Sweetie, you need to ask me something, or you want?" She said, "Well, I wanted to wait till they finished." She said, and then she handed me a drawing of me, and she said, "I had this dream the night before you came to Turkey," and she's Turkish, and I didn't have a clue who she was, and she said, "I just drew this picture of you, and I was told not to give you information." She said, "What are you doing with those lions and tigers?"
Oh,
no
kidding.
No, very few people know that I raise tigers and rescued animals and so on and so on.
Right.
And when Janice sent this, I mean, I just her artwork alone is just stunning, and it is.
It is really good.
A lot of her UFO work too. I mean, she's just great in all kinds of art. But when I saw this, I was just. I said, I wonder if they told her anything, or if because they often do. But it was something. But the question is, where in the world did they get these drawings?
Hey, Janice, before I let you go really quick, if you want to ask Derrel a question, that's great, but we'll get to that. But take me through this picture really quick. Who is what was in the upper right-hand corner, the small face there? It looks like it's in a moon or something. What is that?
I really
or who
don't
is
know.
that? Okay.
I really don't know. It just spontaneously created itself.
Well, you've got different elements here, too. You've got some maybe Indian influences, I'm going to say. Yeah, there's some Mesoamerican stuff. Yeah. And then there's
they just
futuristic. It's there's a lot of different things going on here. Yeah, most definitely.
I really don't. I can't really explain it. I've had dreams where I've been in outer space, where I've looked out of windows and I've seen planets beneath me. It's very hard to explain because I don't understand it myself.
Well, say goodnight. Have you been enjoying the show with Derrel?
Yes. I didn't get in until just now because I didn't get to my emails until late tonight, but I am listening.
Okay. Well, we'll have just check back into the website over the weekend. Today is Friday, and we will have the full show posted up tomorrow. Okay, so just bear with us. Remember, all of our shows are 3 hours long, so it takes a long time to get the shows back up onto the net. But we will have them up tomorrow, and you can follow through the insanity with Derrel and I tonight. We've had a great time tonight. Thank you, Janice.
Great to see you, Janice. Great to hear from you, at least.
Okay, Derrel. I'll see you. Well, I'll hear from you later.
Okay.
Thank you, Janice. Enjoy the rest of the show.
I will. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Which takes me to a couple of points, and I need everybody to do this. And Derrel, please indulge me right now. Everybody go to jimmychurchradio.com, go to the gallery, and click on the very first picture. And I asked Derrel to, and I do this with every guest, send me the one picture that has like changed your life. And you sent me Christina Loves Derrel. And I got to tell you, you took me by surprise with this one. And my mom, by the way, my adopted mother, stepmother, Sharon, is a big cat handler for the Cincinnati Zoo or the Columbus Zoo with Mr. Hanna, okay, who everybody knows. And so that's what she does. And this is a great picture. Now, who is Christina and just tell us about this picture because it is extraordinary. And how old are you here, by the way? You look
Okay.
you look fresh. You look pretty.
Yeah, almost human there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a few years ago.
Yeah, right.
Christina was a rescue animal. I've rescued thousands of animals, but this was a rescue from an apartment of all things in Houston, Texas. And she was quite small when I first got her, and weighed about 60 pounds. Here she weighs about 350. And this is also a picture on my private investigation card, which says basically you need somebody to handle a difficult problem, and
right,
you can see the metaphor. But anyway, she and I were best friends, and when she died, my wife, everybody was in tears and everything, and my wife said we all loved Christina.
Now, so just so everybody understands that isn't looking at what we're looking at, Christina is a Bengal tiger. I'm assuming a Bengal.
That is correct.
Is a tiger, and she's on her back, and her paw, by the way, is as big as your head.
That is correct.
And so how old is Christina here? Now, okay, when you said 60 pounds, was she malnourished and abused? 60 pounds, or was she like a cub?
No, she was basically a growing cub. This idiot had paid thousands of dollars to get her because he couldn't get any girlfriends. Can you believe this?
Right.
She got too big, and he didn't know what to do about it, and so I came and got her from him.
And so how old was she at that point?
She was right here in the picture. She's about
no, when she was a cub.
Right at 2 years old, 2.5 years maybe.
Okay.
And I am probably about 35, right? 33 maybe, 34.
And how long was she with you? How many years?
She lived for about 10 years. We put her finally in a compound outside, just right outside Houston, where many exotic animals were well taken care of. And there was a massive flood that came from Austin, Texas, and they decided Austin it wasn't going to flood because that's the state capital.
Right.
And they called us and let us know in 10 minutes you're going to flood.
Right.
What?
Right.
And no one could get down there in time, and every one of the exotic animals died, with the exception of her. She swam. She swims. She loves water. And she tore the top off of her building when the flood got about 12, 13 feet deep. And the police were out there in a boat, and this is the only thing they could do. I do not blame them for what happened. She tore the top off the building to get out from keeping from drowning, and was swimming toward them in a small boat. You can imagine what would happen if she nicely tried to get in the boat, weighing 450 pounds.
Unbelievably
So they end up
animal.
having to shoot her, and unfortunately, that's how her life ended.
Wow! Incredible picture. I mean, it just
Yes,
the old saying, speaks 1,000 words. Well, yeah, there's about 10,000 here. That is an incredible picture. And you know how many people on this earth have done what you're doing right here in this picture? Not many. It's a handful.
Most of them have probably been eaten.
Right. Incredible picture. Incredible. Now, Derrel, and I apologize for this, but we haven't talked about your show, and I do believe that because I knew we were going to have this kind of fun tonight and learn. We haven't gotten to the show, so and we haven't gotten to the gallery, and we've been talking for 2 hours, and that says a lot. Which means obviously you're going to come back. We've got a lot to do. We're still going to talk for another 20-25 minutes here tonight, but let me do a couple of things really quick for everybody out there. How did this show start? Well, I'm talking about Uncovering Aliens. How did the show start, and give us who had the concept for the show originally?
Thank you for asking. That was a concept of Raw TV. Raw TV is a UK-based group, and they've got some of the top shows in the market. I mean, they've got several top shows, and Gold Rush is a good example, and numerous others, and they got a bunch of others in the can. And our show was started in connection with of course, the Raw TV was the production company, and Animal Planet and Discovery and so on were the ones that hired them to come up with an alien show and so on, and they did a very good job of it. We're very proud of them. And long story short, is the show was so good apparently, and the other shows that they had produced, that Animal Planet / Discovery Channel bought the entire production company, and basically we're working for Animal Planet and Discovery right now, all of us.
And how many made the cut? I mean, there was cuts. I mean, obviously there was probably a lot of original cast members, and then that whittled down and whittled down. Was it by committee? Was it by voting? Did you pay somebody off? How does that happen?
That's good. I love that. Well, great question. All we knew is that they had, and I don't know how many other people they looked through, and I suspect it was a bunch. They're very thorough, very effective, and very professional. And it came down to 7 of us finally, and they flew us all to England, and we did a trial case there on one of my abductees in the London area. And we did this trial show with all of us involved, and then we went to New York City area, and we did a trial show there as well. And after that, they whittled it down to 4 people out of that, and the 4 of us that are on the stars of the show we're it.
And who's the one that you get along with the best?
Once again?
Who do you get along with the best? It was supposed to be funny.
Actually, I get along with every one of them real well. Stephen and I, philosophically, he's the contactee, I'm the abductee. We are philosophically as far apart as you can get, but the fact is we care a lot about each other, and I respect his viewpoint. I don't uphold it, but I do respect it, and I don't care whether he's had positive experiences, and that's his belief system, and I don't have a problem with that. I'm after evidence, and evidence it is paramount in my case. But Maureen Ellsbury is of Open Minds magazine, is the investigative journalist. She does an outstanding job and well respected, and she has my respect on top of the fact that she has respect of others.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You have after that you have an aeronautics engineer, which was chosen for his skills there. I think it may be more, but his name is Mike Barra, and he's a good guy, and he often plays the tough guy who's show me the evidence and all that, and that's pretty good. And it makes a nice balance of when all of us get together. It really makes a really good mix, in my opinion.
Who chooses the cases that you guys go out and investigate?
Ultimately, we submit cases ourselves, and they also research cases themselves, and then they will come up with ultimately some cases that they want us to go after and so on. And, of course, we're just thrown in the mix at that point. And the investigative journalist, she does a lot of the background research on the case and so on, brings it forward, and then of course, then Stephen will come in and, give his analysis of, well, I think that this person is truly an abductee or a contactee, and they're into the dance and all that, and, and so on. He'll give his viewpoint. And then Mike will, of course, come in there and say, well, we're going to have to find the evidence. I've got to see it, smoking gun and all that.
Right.
And then I'll come in and I'm there. I'm an investigator. That's all I've been most of my life. I've been a cop for 3 years and a combat cop. And the difference between that and a police officer is I'm not going to yell freeze.
Well, see, this is the thing. Exactly, Derrel. Would you ever, and I'm going to give you an idea right now for a future episode, but you're sitting there, the cameras are rolling, the case is moving, you've got it, and all of a sudden your red flag goes off, and you just go, no. And right there, call BS on the spot. Is that something that would you do that? I mean,
has that happened?
Well, only because I trust your integrity, and I can feel your integrity. And if it's going the wrong way, would you do it on camera? And would Raw TV let that hit the television?
Well, I don't know ultimately, but I don't know the question. I can't answer for everybody. But any of us that have had any questions, the reason I like this team is because there is a lot of integrity with them. It doesn't matter whether we have differing views or differing backgrounds and so on. And I'm older than dirt, so I've got a little more experience than some of them, obviously in different areas, and they've got more experience than me in other areas that they're in, for certain. But the point is that we have great respect for each other, and we do call it like we see it. And we have had cases that we simply canned before they ever got started because we already know that there's something seriously wrong with that picture.
Right.
And I have been very vocal, and others have as well, that certain cases that we weren't even going to investigate, deal with, and handle simply because that thing is seriously flawed before it even gets to the cutting room floor.
Well, is there a reason why that wouldn't make the final cut? I would think this, and this is, and I'm speaking for everybody out there listening right now. If something like that was actually aired, I think that helps your integrity. You know, instead of only showing the good stuff, which is fine because that's what we need to see, but maybe something that didn't make the cut. Well, of course, maybe the subject wouldn't want that aired, but
that is very true. But I have, of course, we film, probably 100 or more hours. Filming on each section, each different show that we do,
right?
And it's up to production then whoever's calling the shots to say this is going to be in, this is not going to be in. There are a lot of things that I would love to see in that wasn't in there. But the fact is, the show have been a great success. I mean, they really have, and looks like we're going to do some more, and I'm very excited about that. But the point is that many of these things, we get a chance to look at them before we get in the field. And most of us know a lot of these people or circumstances or cases. And if we don't know it, for instance, the case is mine and nobody knows anything about it, then I'll handle the case and they will basically take their cues from me. If it's someone else's case, they'll take it. But if it's something none of us have, so to speak, it's not our particular case, then we'll all just jump in there and do our parts. But in one case, we're at the Bradshaw Ranch in Sedona, and Mike and Maureen are going up the hill. They said, we're going to go up the hill and look for this or whatever. And if you catch it in the flick, it's cute. I thought it was a funny little part, but it's 100% me. I said, well, y'all go ahead and look. Y'all go ahead and go on up there and look for something that isn't there, and I'll go down here and look for something that is there.
I've got two quick questions.
And then I go down there and find a radiation ring where a UFO landed 25 years before.
Wow.
Okay. To me, that was just hilarious.
Okay, I've got. I'm looking at the clock while I'm reading this. Okay, this next question comes in from Dino, and Dino wants to know if you're familiar with any Greys that operate with the CIA or other black agencies. Are they in cahoots?
Okay, I was in the company for 2 years, and in corporate operations, I was investigating UFO cases back then, by the way. In fact, abduction cases that were happening right there in Virginia. I did not investigate, quote-unquote, any CIA cases where aliens were involved. I had no knowledge of that and still don't. I have heard some interesting stories. I have had some intelligence friends of mine tell me some fascinating stories. But here's the problem with stories. Even though I believe some of these stories to some degree, they're still stories. The question, when I put my cop hat on, is where's the beef?
Right.
But how come you didn't get a little piece of the UFO? Why didn't you were there with the alien? Why didn't you just take your thumbnail, scratch that little sucker, and just scrape your fingernail and send me the DNA?
Right.
Why do you have these stories, but you didn't bring any photographs back?
Right.
Well, that doesn't make any sense to me. You're out there in the field where a UFO just crashed in 1947, and nobody found a piece of it or put a piece in their pocket. That's just not true.
Right.
They did.
Has anybody, do you have any metal? Do you have any, like chunks of stuff? Is there anything crazy? Or you wouldn't tell me if you did.
Well, I'd tell you, but I'd have to.
Right.
I'd have to break my own arm.
But has there been anything? Right. Yeah. Anything more than DNA or little thing? I mean, have you been presented with anything substantial?
Yes.
Okay.
One piece was looked at, and it's called the Uratuba piece, and it was a UFO exploded and crashed and burned completely in the water off the island of Uratuba, if I'm not mispronouncing it. But basically the case is that witnesses saw it burning out there, and it burned up or whatever, probably completely, kind of like magnesium wheel or something gets on your car, gets on fire. It's gone. I mean, it's going to really do some damage, and you're not going to put it out with a fire extinguisher. So it burned up, but it blew some pieces up on little tiny pieces up on the beach, and the beach goers there said, look at that. Well, several people have looked at these Uratuba piece, and one of them is Dr. Peter Sturrock, a really decent guy. I've been to Stanford and done some lab work and some other things with him, and he's an outstanding scientist and very, very fine man. And he has done some work, I understand, on that particular piece and has found the elements in it to be extraterrestrial.
Okay. This comes in from your friend Cosmo. Okay, he says, Derrel, great to hear from you on the show, old friend. As you know, I'm not an abductee, contactee, but I am curious to know, how can you tell if a person has been fed an alien story by a hypnotist, and how can someone find a reliable hypnotist? Great show from your friend Cosmo.
We get some good questions on this.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, I don't ruffle any feathers
well,
here.
You know, and this is a thing, and Cosmo, I want you to respect this. This show, it could go. This show could get ugly every single night because everybody has a story that conflicts with somebody else, maybe even with the same event, and we have some very. These topics are controversial, and
yes,
before I don't want to get into finger pointing, and
no,
and we have mentioned a lot of names tonight, and again, so and these are people that I respect, so this is touchy. So I'm just saying before you answer, okay, there's no reason to go that we don't have to go there, but I'm curious with Cosmo's question. I've just said how I really feel. We could potentially be talking about friends of mine, and yours.
That's right.
So, but how can you tell if somebody's been maybe some suggestive things that may have gone on? Can you feel that? Do you know it? And does your BS meter go off?
It does when I see that whenever I find that there are things that are inconsistent with, like I told Bud one time, Bud Hopkins, we're in Marseille, France, and he says, I said, he said, Derrel, so I get the impression you think you could actually catch one of these guys, and I said, I think I can. And he said, well, that's impossible. And I said, well, Bud, you know anything about the Rocky Mountain sheep? And he said, no. And I said, well, they don't have habits. And he said, what does that mean? I said, it means you can't trap them.
Meaning?
He said, what does that mean? I said, what that means is we have all habits. And I said, that's why aliens are able to easily catch us, because we have real good habits, and they know where we're at. I said, but what you don't understand is that the alien has habits too. He said, what do you mean? I said, when the person comes to you and tells you many of these abductee stories, could you not literally start talking and almost describe their event? And he said, yes. I said, the alien has habits. They have programs that they're running. What that means is he can be captured just like we can. And he said, that's impossible. And I said, Bud, that's been done before. And he said, where? And I said, Roswell, 1947.
That leads me to this question. Here you have, and I know this has been asked before. I've asked it of many guests, but you're a little bit different. I want to hear your answer to this. You traverse the universe galaxy to galaxy, you know, thousands of light years away, whatever the case may be, you get here to planet Earth, and then you crash your frigging flying saucer.
Great
how does that happen? And well, okay, no, let's just let's just stay there. With all of your experience, is that possible? I guess so. Let's
You're
just go
there. You're going to love
there.
my answer.
Okay, let's go. Fly
there.
mission.
Here's the answer. I wrote a paper, and I'll send a lot of this stuff to people on hypnosis and all this stuff. I'll send this stuff to you free. Just email me. Go to my website or go to alienhunter.org, and it doesn't matter. Wherever, they've got my emails there, or on Facebook, Derrel Sims Alien Hunter, and email me, and I'll send the stuff to you free. I will. I don't care. So the bottom line is that one of the papers we wrote was on Roswell, what really happened. What I do is I take my UFO hat off and put my, you ready for this?
Don't say tinfoil.
My intelligence hat on.
Okay, there you go.
Intelligence people don't look at anything like anybody. They're looking for the bottom line of what it's really all about, and they don't even care about the other hats. They'll use the information, but they don't care. So the point is, I asked people. I was at Roswell when I mentioned this, by the way, in the museum there in the library. I said, let me ask you people a question. I said, I think Roswell event happened 1947, fairly much like people describe. I said, but, and there's a big but. And I said, the but negates a lot of things that were just previously said.
Right.
And here's what it is. I said, I think that the aliens don't have any problem with flying their UFOs, and I don't think that they accidentally ran into each other or radar knocked them down. Any of those may have happened. I'm not saying it didn't happen that way. I don't care. What I care about is the fact that it did happen and why. I said, first of all, it did happen, and it happened at the only nuclear base that there was at Roswell, and that was, that's just incredible. And for a UFO or two of them to collide with each other and land in these two different locations and so on, I said, what I'm telling you is that was no accident, that it was done on purpose, in my opinion, however that happened, and that this was an intelligence operation, and that's all it was. It's not about we're going to land and save the people or land or do anything, or we can't drive very well on planet Earth. It wasn't those problems. They crashed those craft, and it didn't make any difference how many aliens died. It's irrelevant. It's only important that one of them survived. They got 1 million. They're like toasters of these guys. They got millions of them. So the question is, why did they? So if one of them survives, that's all that matters. And well, that guy gets flown from Carswell to Wright-Patterson, where he's probably still eating ice cream or whatever it is they're feeding him. But it didn't make any difference. The problem is they sat in front of this little cosmic skinhead,
right?
The most influential person in the military-industrial complex, General Nathan Twining. Now, any abductee or contactee can tell you that's real, that these little guys can download every bit of the information out of your head real quick, rapidly, without you knowing it. Now, the Nathan Twining is sitting in front of this guy. Do you think anybody's agenda might have been fulfilled there?
Well, exactly.
And they said, well, why didn't they? I said, if aliens could beam these guys out, why didn't they beam him out? I said, the reason is because he's still giving them good intel.
Well, that was my question. So then where does the intel go from that being? Is it telepathic out of there? Because he's still with us. So,
well, the fact is he may have had a visitor that came in and got the information from him.
Right.
Or they can do it. They can do it at a relatively close distance. I mean, there are different ways it can be done. However it is they do it. But the point is, from a intelligence point of view, this was an intelligence operation, and we just got compromised like you couldn't believe. The Russians or nobody could have done anything near this good. It's amazing what they did.
Now, we've all heard these numbers, and we'll kind of end the show with this because it's going to take you a while to answer. We've all heard the numbers of the high percentages of the the population of Earth has been has had some kind of contact. What is it that we are seeing, with the black triangles and flying saucers and everywhere, and photographs and tons? I've seen them. I've photographed them. What are those aliens? Is that off-world stuff that we are seeing on a daily basis, or is that terrestrial? And I'll even make it a little more direct. The contacts that you have made, did they arrive here on a ship of some kind, or do they arrive in another means? So are we seeing two different things, or are we seeing one and the same?
Great question, and a great one to end on. The fact is that some of the craft that have been captured by the United States military from the 30s on up, it wasn't in Roswell, it didn't start there, but it was a focal point for sure. But the fact is that these entities, because of bad driving or because on purpose, we were able to recover some of the objects, and apparently some degree of back engineering seems to have occurred. That being said, if that's true, Area 51, Pine Gap, and places like Antarctica where they ship 2 nuclear generators, what do you think they're heating up their huts to Antarctica? That may explain a lot more about some of the places that were doing some real interesting stuff. The bottom line to me is that some of the stuff, if it's been back engineered or been even replicated in some degree, or at least in design, you may be looking at some UFOs that are in fact ours instead of quote unquote theirs. That's number one. Number two, the last large triangle was that I know of. It's a case we have out of Wisconsin, which is fascinating. The guy was a DA of all things, and his wife, and they're looking at this big black triangle fly over, and whoa, look at that.
Right.
And he said, let's get in the car and chase it. And she's like, no, are you nuts?
Right.
But they did, and they ended up abducted, apparently, and I have his watch. He also gave an affidavit to the case that he was, in fact, they were abducted. But the next day, his watch quit working. He took it to the watchman, and they took it apart, and the watch had been melted from the inside.
Wow. Really?
And, yeah, that's fascinating.
Well, I've never heard that.
My top hat back on, I want to know how that could be done without quote-unquote aliens doing it. So all these hats still have to be satisfied.
That's really okay. You know what? We've got 5 minutes. Okay, so now I'm going to get 2 questions in, and I'm going to end on Eugene's last tweet that he has tweeted. So we'll do that last. All of these abductions, I mean, we're always focusing, it seems like, on North America. Are people in China getting abducted too? You know, Africa, where, and well, you understand the question.
The answer to the question is yes, and but the question is, in fact, when I went to Brazil, they said, well, all the best cases are in the United States, and I said, that's not true. I said, many of them are down here, and they said, why do you think that? And I said, because you're all Indians. And they said, no, we're not. We're French, we're Portuguese, we're this, they're that. And I said, yes, and when you came here, your fathers and fathers before you, who did you marry?
Well, and you had said earlier, you know, Irish, Celtic descent, and yep. I get that. I really do. But they're not, aliens aren't racist, or they're not.
That's true. But the point is that.
No, I'm asking you, are they? I mean,
yeah. Well, they, in a sense of the word, they may be, because the fact that you got this honeybee thing and this. Everybody keeps telling me, the contactees keep telling me, well, they're here trying to help you abductees to get your oars in the water and to do the right thing. I said, sweetie, what you don't understand, they're helping your DNA. I said, listen to me. I said, they may be interested in trying to alter our DNA so we're all quiet little teddy bears like you.
Interesting.
I said, maybe they don't like the idea of resistance at all.
Right.
I said, you might want to think about that. When I went to Turkey, I told those Turks, I said, 45% of you people are Native American, Indian, Irish, Celtic, one of those three or a combination. And they all came back and said, Mr. Sims, we love your work. We love you here. But you're wrong about that. I said, it's based on research. It's not my opinion. Let's give me a break, folks. They said, but you're wrong. And I said, okay. Several years ago, a scientist from a professor from the university had an idea that the Turks might be related to some Indians, and he came here to the United States, took DNA from certain Native American tribes in the north, took it back and did DNA tests with the Turks, and guess what they found? The Turks are Native American, Indian, Irish as well, or Native American at least, anyway. They were stunned.
Yeah, I'm stunned right now. And and I was sitting here thinking as I was listening to your answer, even if there were abductions going on in China, or I brought up China because of the large population, and it's a big landmass. And when ET arrives here, I don't know if it's an arbitrary grab or not. I don't know, but there is a lot of people in China. But the government there, if there was anything going on, would suppress all of that information, and we wouldn't know, what the true numbers really are.
You are wiser than your years, sir.
No.
The fact is, you don't have to go to China to get a lot of Chinese. All you got to do is stop by the United States and find there's a good population of. The United States is pretty much a melting pot of all nations, isn't it?
I just noticed I have
You don't have to travel far. You can. It's a one-stop shopping. This is the alien Kmart, and the blue light special is on, and you got free trips for everybody. Come on aboard.
I just noticed I had my microphone spun sideways for the entire show. Take that, Keith. Keith is probably going, man, where's the volume at? Now I can hear myself. But, I was just speaking louder and louder. It's just bouncing off the walls in here. But, wow, what an incredible show. And again, we have to get you back. Not only that, but I wish you much success with the show. And the reason I mentioned this to you earlier today, I don't endorse anything. And actually, I'm not endorsing your show. I can't do that, but I can highly recommend it. and for me, well, see, and the thing is this. When I brought this up last week on the air, I know that everybody kind of tripped. The staff here at the station did, and the listeners out there, what the heck is Jimmy doing? Can't go in, and he's never done that before. And I slipped. I let it slip out. I said, man, today I was watching this new show Uncovering Aliens. It was really cool. I stopped and I just had to watch, and wow, and I let it slip. And once it's out, I can't take it back. It's a live show. So in all seriousness, it's done differently. You can tell there is a little bit of guerrilla videography going on, in that it's real-time stuff. It's being shot real, and that type of journalism, that type of show, you can the viewer picks up on that right away. I can tell that nobody's going cut, and doing another take. That's not what's going on here, and you can tell. And so whoever thought up that, whether it was you or not, they should be commended. And the show is fantastic. What night is it on?
It's on different times. They show it different, and half the time I don't know, because I rarely get to watch TV because I'm doing research and just running with as fast as I can with my like a chicken with my head cut off. Just found out my daughter's got MS, and so my wife went up for 2 weeks to work with her up there, and they're helping her out and doing everything. So all of you out there that pray or have a higher power, whatever it is you think it is out there, appreciate your prayers, and and gosh, all the people got MS, give them a little support there, and gosh, I just appreciate everybody. I really do, and I love the questions from this audience. Man, you got a smart bunch of people in that audience, and the more detailed and the more complex the questions, if I've got a brain to answer it, I will, and I don't know everything. I just don't. If I did, I could answer every question perfectly, but I just don't know everything. Sorry.
I had so much fun tonight, and I'm very proud, by the way, of our audience here. I am so proud, and they know that. Well, now that you've hung with me this far, we're just gonna ride this out. Okay.
Okay.
Let's just go through the credits. Thank you, Derrel Sims, Uncovering Aliens. And I'm getting some weird feedback. There it goes. Okay, let's get rid of it there. Stay tuned. Coming up next, you can say goodnight here in a second, Derrel. You're going to say goodnight to everybody. Coming up next is Explorations with Michio Kaku, followed by After Dark, live with your host, Brian Alvarez. Special thanks to Keith Rowland and Art Bell. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. The show is produced by Hilton J. Palm and Mark D. Kovar. Announcers are Steve Harder and Mark D. Kovar. Music is by Doug Aldrich. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR and the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. And sorry, Uncle Duke, I didn't get to your questions tonight. I'll talk to you over the weekend. Say goodnight, Derrel.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
I am out of here. Everybody have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week.